of time.
O'clock.
Hey everybody, what's going on? It's Wednesday night. Tom has his aggressive shirt on.
Yeah.
That's what he called it when he first came and sat down. I'm like, are you going to be back there like rubbing your nipples and stuff and distracting everyone from the show? You know how you do.
This shit's fucking kind of low, you know?
Yeah, he's trying to
Look at
like,
the back of that
he's
shit.
trying to draw them all in.
Yeah.
Sure, I know. I mean, that's how he's gonna be doing that behind me the whole show. It's gonna, and I'm gonna be like losing my place in the notes and be like, "What? Would you stop it?" But you know how it's. So hey, everybody, it's Wednesday night. You guys know what that means. That means it's our main show. This topic won handily in the poll, as I suspected that it would. I thought that a long time ago, I had the Matamoros Cult in the running for, topics and stuff, but I don't know if we ever talked about it or, it just got deleted from the list somehow. But it's like, I find it, but somebody recommended a couple weeks back or something. It's like, you should do a show about Adolfo Constanzo and the Matamoros Cult, or the Narco-Satanists, as they're sometimes called, even though technically they're not Satanists, but we'll get into that. This was happened during the late 80s, so it was prime satanic panic time. But this is some messed up shit.
Gonna be some sick shit.
This is some messed up shit. I'm just telling you right now, as, I'm sure people that are regulars of this show are probably familiar with this and are probably familiar with it. I mean, this is one of the most messed up. This is one of the things, and I don't know if this was really the thing that made the satanic panic go crazy, because I think it had kind of been going on prior to this. But this case was kind of like the exception that proved the rule, because you know how there was, during the satanic panic, there was all this thing about, oh my god, people are like sacrificing people to Satan and, for power, for black magic and all this other kind of shit. And largely that was not happening. But in this case, it did happen.
Yeah, in Mexico, the shit was happening.
That's absolutely what was happening in this particular case. Like I said, all of the victims, and they don't know how many there were Mexican, except for one very famous American case whose name was Mark Kilroy. He was on America's Most Wanted and stuff like that. So we'll be talking about that also. And honestly, like, him getting kidnapped and horribly murdered was kind of the thing that brought the whole cult down. As far as we know, that they're not still out there, because most of them are in prison or dead. But yeah, this is like I said, it's pretty messed up. And I watched like a whole bunch of different documentaries about this. Xanada sent me like a half-hour long like interview with one of the cops, who was actually, I think he was from Brownsville, Texas, because they kind of work together, because Brownsville is right on the border. And he was like, they interviewed him, and it was like a really good interview, like where he talked about all kind of stuff, because he was there like when a lot of stuff was happening, like investigated it and everything. And they had like police footage of the guy that went there when they found the bodies and all this other kind of shit. So yeah, Xanada said, I know a lot about this case. Yeah, so so if I mess up any pronunciations or any facts or something like that, because I kind of went, it's a very involved case, so I kind of tried to keep it. But there's like a lot of other stuff like going on around, and particularly with the way that the cult might have had connections to like kind of higher up government officials, like a dude that was like, in Interpol and stuff like that, which maybe helped them get away with shit. Well, they know for sure that they had cop connections, because there were a lot of corrupt cops going on. And so it kind of made them seem like they were actually magical, because they were working for the drug cartels, and they were saying, it's like, hey, you better not do this on this particular day. That's what the magic says. But really, they had like connections in the cops, so they knew what was going on. But it made them seem like a lot more powerful. You know what I mean? Yeah. So there was a lot of that going on too.
The illusion of power.
Right. Xanada said Mexicans take witchcraft seriously. You can. That will be very apparent as we talk about this case. Very apparent.
Central and South America are very different from North America, mostly because of the religious traditions. I partially grew up in Sao Paulo, Brazil. My family was there for 12 years. I was there probably a total of maybe like 4, and broken up in a couple things. Because I went off and came back to the United States and joined the Army and stuff. Central and South America, of course, are more Catholic. And the Catholic system has kind of an expanded universe.
That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah, and in that expanded universe are like people's saints. You know, it'd be a good way, like a system of saints and angels and demons. All right. Well, they're mostly kind of innocuous. It's kind of like poor people saints and stuff. Other ones are like saints that criminals will have offerings to, and these tend to be kind of like satanic type stuff.
What we would consider demonic or satanic. Sure.
Yeah. When I was in Brazil, a lot of my working class friends, who were like taxi cab drivers and just people that I knew, they were Catholic, but they would regularly go to fucking macumba rituals, and I would go with them, and they weren't satanic. It was like an alternate church where you could go and kind of like pay for help that the official church wouldn't give you. You know what I mean? Like you could pay a priest and he'd fucking do rituals and shit like that, and have girls fucking smoking and blowing smoke and dancing. Actually kind of fun, the rituals. It's not sinister or anything. Usually it's to help you with money.
Yeah.
It's usually and job. And to keep your boss from firing you. Shit like that.
Just regular people concerns.
Yeah. Now, you got to pay the priest, that's usually the offerings, might be, money usually is what it is. Then they might tell you that you had to put an offering out, on the streets of fucking cigarettes and a dead chicken.
It's usually a dead chicken.
Money, some booze.
Yeah, booze. That's
might be a watch or something like that, something for the spirits or whatever spirit it is you're dealing with. And then you leave it out on a busy street with candles burning. And Brazil has a lot of poor people in it, and that bitch will sit there untouched. They won't touch that shit because that was an offering.
Yeah, and they respect that, right?
Yeah. So something like narco soldiers or people involved in heavy-duty organized crime, they got to do hardcore shit to keep things together, including commit murders.
Because they're trying to seek protection from the law so they don't get caught.
Right, and they'll appeal to demons or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to have people try to make money and get power off that.
Yep.
And, evil priests, basically. And they're out there. I think Mexico right now, their main one is a Santa Muerte. The Saint of Death.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the Grim Reaper. And a lot of your narco agents give offerings to that one. It sounds crazy in North America because, for us, Christianity is mostly some kind of a Protestantism. Like I'm Southern Baptist by tradition, and we don't have systems of saints and things. We have some of our fucking weird rituals, fucking dancing with snakes and drinking poison and shit, but all that stuff is kind of...
That's pretty fringe.
That's pretty fringe, but, there is that kind of shit every now and then. But Catholicism opens up opportunities for an extended universe or expanded universe in religion. So it's very useful. And of course, Mexico is a synthesis of Catholicism and Mayan traditions, Aztec traditions and stuff. And if you really study the Conquista, where Hernan Cortez and Spain, they kind of merged, kind of took over and kind of merged with Mexico. The Spanish monks of the time noticed that Aztec religions and Mayan beliefs had a lot of crossover with Catholicism. That everything that the Mayans believed in, there was a Catholic analog.
Yeah, pretty much.
So it helped conversion to Catholicism because, the Mayans recognized it, and the Aztecs went, "Oh yeah, we know what that is." So there isn't a big difference really between.
Yeah, I mean the whole Catholic thing of
Yeah.
appealing to saints for particular things, for help with particular things, that was very familiar to indigenous people when the Spaniards came here. So it may, and the things like Santeria and the religion that we're talking about in this particular case, which was Palo Mayombe, was and a kind of an African religion that got brought to the Caribbean through Cuba and stuff like that, like with the slave trade. And so a lot of the slaves didn't really find Catholicism that different, so it was very easy for them to like be like, hey, yeah, we totally converted to Catholicism, but they were still like doing stuff with their traditional gods.
The one I used to go to was Macumba. Also, there also Candomblé is like another word. It was another division of it, and it was African Catholicism. It was very cool. Kind of like something at that time, it'd be hard. It was hard for an American to see something like that. You had to have friends that would take you, and I'd give money when I went to it, and it was in the dude's backyard. It was all enclosed, but it was very serious. Girls dancing. They're dressed in kind of like traditional garb from Bahia, which is kind of like white bonnets and big long skirts and it's kind of it's the way Brazilian Africans dressed, and they're out there dancing and blowing smoke and stuff, and they could be of any race. They're just Brazilians. They don't have to be African, but the beliefs are African mixed with Catholicism and other stuff. But I thought it was great. Now some of the stuff that the narco agents are doing, I'm just going to call them that because they come in a lot of different forms, it's Catholic adjacent, but it's the dark side. They're dealing with demons. But the Mayans and the Aztecs dealt with demons. That was part of their religion. The Spaniards called it, like, it was human sacrifice, and they called it demon worship. But that was just the Spanish concept of it. That was their view of it. The Mayans and the Aztecs didn't really worship demons and devils. What they did is they tried to bribe them off. They were scared of them. So they would try to pay off the devil to keep them away.
Yeah, to keep them from fucking with them.
Right.
That's what they were doing.
Right.
Here, have some cigarettes and whiskey.
Yeah.
Please leave me alone.
And they would provide human sacrifices, sacrifice of children, virgin, women, old people, just anybody. Sometimes fully grown people, the best ones they could find, they'd sacrifice them, maybe to ward off evil, pay off and bribe devils, or to bribe, say, like a rain goddess to make it rain, So there wasn't any kind of like malice in the hearts of these people. They actually believed these things, and that they were trying to save themselves from disaster. By all accounts, the Spanish monks that were doing the conversion were trying to save a lot of Mayan literature and Aztec religions and stuff for posterity, because they said it was really well written, but the Catholic Church fucking wasn't having any of it. They just considered everything to be devil worship, really. But the guys that were on site kind of knew it for what it really was. They said that the Aztecs were good people, that it was just they were doing this out of religious piety. Well, when the narcos got involved in all this shit, of course, it's kind of like in their traditions now, like, because sacrificing people, and some of the sacrifices were pretty brutal in Aztec times. Some of it involved just kings punishing people, cutting their fingertips off and shit like that, capturing enemies. And warfare for them wasn't killing enemies, it was capturing them so you could sacrifice them up on top of a temple to repay the blood debt. And the blood debt had to be repaid so the sun would continue to rise and set, every day. They're trying to keep the clockwork of the fucking universe running. It was a very
and they
advanced
apparently
thinking.
really did believe that.
Yeah.
Well, and the thing about this particular cult, I do think it does seem from their actions that most of the followers did actually believe this.
Yeah.
Now, the head of the cult, who we're going to be talking about, Alfonso Constanzo, did he believe it entirely? I don't think so, but I don't know. There's a couple things that he did that made me think that maybe not, but I don't know. He could have been a believer as well because he was raised in the shit. So I'm not really sure. But a couple of his things that he did like kind of made me think that he knew.
And by the same token, seemingly Aztec and Mayan rulers in charge of their city-states, they probably believed it in general, but they also used it as a tool of control and oppression. Because once you have the power to make people pay the blood debt by fucking sacrificing them, you can keep them in line. You say, if you don't listen to me, I'm going to sacrifice your daughter, make her pay the blood debt. So they were doing shit like that. They probably believed what they were doing worked, but they also used it as a tool.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it, because I think that's pretty much exactly what was going on here.
Yeah.
By all accounts, many of the people that were in this cult did believe that what they were doing was working, because it did seem to work, but I think there were other reasons that it was working, not because of the magic, but they really did seem to believe it. Whether he believed it or not, I'm not entirely certain. I think he believed it to an extent, but I don't know if he had as much faith in it as the followers did.
A lot of Mayan and Aztec human sacrifice, really, when you really look down to the base of the root cause of it, is because they didn't know why crops failed. They knew if it didn't rain, crops would fail. But they couldn't understand why crops were failing because they didn't understand about fertilization at the time. And they would deplete the soil around the city. So they couldn't feed everybody because each yield would get worse. So they would sacrifice people. They couldn't feed them anyway. Trying to make the population fit the food supply they had. They thought, well, maybe God wants us to get rid of all these many people because we're in debt to him. And if we get rid of this many people, we'll be able to eat. You know, it was just the way they rationalized things. They didn't know about fertilization. That would have prevented a lot of it. But if you were to probably explain that to an Aztec or a Mayan of the time, the concept of fertilization probably would have blown their mind. They probably wouldn't have believed it. They'd have been, hell, what the fuck are you talking about? All these people being born, every time somebody's born, it takes blood from God. They're giving us the blood, so we're sapping God of the blood that he needs. We got to give it back. We're in debt. That's what they're doing. So it'd be real hard to, if you're born with those belief systems, it'd be real hard to reason with them. But it's fascinating. It's just part of the thing of fucking Mesoamerica and Central and South America. Mostly Central America, there's something in the indigenous people where this is kind of a traditional thinking for them. You know, Catholicism fucking goes right along with it. It played right into it.
Yeah, Xanada said you guys did a show on Santa Muerte. I thought we had. I knew we had done something similar to this. Yeah, we did do a show on Santa Muerte. But this guy's shit was even darker than that. Yeah, this is way, way worse than the Santa Muerte shit. This is way worse. Ooh, I got way behind. Okay. Yeah, Kason Lee said Aztecs were trying to stop the end of the world by sacrificing humans by the hundreds, right?
Yeah, well, the Mayan long count was part of the problem, too, yeah. The long count.
Yeah, Xanada said, I feel like Constanzo was way more into the sacrifice and religious aspect than he was into selling drugs. Yeah, because it almost seemed like the whole drug thing was just like a sideline. He wasn't even into drugs, and there was a thing in his cult where if you got caught doing drugs, he would fuck you up. Like, because he actually killed some of his own followers for being caught doing that. He was just they were just selling it, I guess, like to make money or whatever. So you know what I mean? Yeah, and Xanada said, from what I remember, cartels came to him for protection. Yeah, they did. That's how he made a lot of his money, which we'll get into in a bit. Yeah, so that's why. And the thing about it is that, and this is kind of true all over the world, but people that are engaged in very, very risky professions, whether they're illegal or not, tend to be more superstitious because their lives are more uncertain. So they want something that gives them some certainty. So if you are in a drug cartel and you are afraid you're going to get shot up or captured or whatever, like at any moment, then that's kind of a very uncertain existence. So it stands to reason that those people would be largely very, very superstitious and are kind of looking for anything that's going to give them a leg up, even if it's just, even if it just to us seems like magic bullshit, but they really, really do believe it though. Let's see. Yeah, astrology. Yeah, because Eric Lynn said they knew a lot of astrology, used that as a tool, I think, the Aztecs. Yeah. Okay, so let me see. Okay. All right. So, do you want to kind of get into this, and you can kind of throw in your 2 cents, like whenever we get into this. Like I said, this cult, once it was discovered, I feel like it wasn't really discovered by the world at large until 1989, which is when the Mark Kilroy case happened. But they had been doing this for several years prior. It was just kind of more on the down low. So when the story came out, the media had a fucking field day with it, because like I said, this was the late 80s and they were still all about satanic panic. So they were just kind of like, there's, the narco-Satanists, the this, that, and the other thing, which, like I said, they're not Satanists, but it was kind of a similar thing. So I could see why they said that. But they did kind of like blow the shit. Well, I don't want to say they blew the shit out of proportion, because it was bad enough as it was. But it's like they speculated about a lot of stuff that they didn't really know about. So there's that. And I kind of feel like, too, because the religions of Santeria, Palo, Mayombe, and stuff like that are not that familiar to Americans, particularly back then. They would have seen it as Satanism because they didn't understand it, I suppose. But there are lots of people that practice those religions that don't do this shit. This was just a super outlier. You know what I mean? Now, as far as they
Outliers
know,
still exist, and we're going to talk about them.
well, like I said,
you have to know the spectrum.
Any religion can be taken to its logical extreme. And
that happens quite often.
And it happens quite often. But it's usually like a fringe that's doing that kind of stuff.
Jim Jones type shit.
Right. Most of the people that follow particular religions are completely, harmless and stuff. Like I said, I don't really truck with religions. I don't see the point of them. But a lot of people, most people that follow them, it's just like nothing. But some people, like these people, kind of take the shit and go crazy with it. Let's call it that. Now, they're not entirely sure, like I said, how many people this cult killed. Wikipedia says the confirmed number is 15, but many more suspected. I've also seen 16 confirmed. I've seen 17 confirmed, and some people think like it's dozens more that they can't really prove. You know what I mean? I would suspect it's a lot more, considering what their methods were. I bet there was a lot of people that they killed that they didn't know about, which, like I said, I'll get into in a little bit. So let's kind of talk about the leader of this cult, as it would become, Adolfo de Jesus Constanzo.
Yeah.
Now, I think on the teaser picture, I think I put Alfonso instead of Adolfo. I don't know why I put that, but I fixed it on the other thing. But I was just kind of, because I looked at my YouTube thing and I was like, oh shit, I put Alfonso on that. I had to change it like right before the show, because I don't know what I was thinking. But his name's Adolfo, like Adolf. You know what I mean? Now, he was actually born in Miami. So he was born in 1962. Now,
Florida man.
Yeah, he's a Florida man. Which that totally,
Florida man.
That totally tracks.
Satanic cult, Mexico,
right.
Kills 14.
15.
15.
Well, and probably more like 50
in many more.
Something.
Yeah.
Probably.
Florida man.
Or more. Yeah, it's Florida man. Now, his mom, whose name was Delia, she was actually a Cuban immigrant, Cuban refugee. Now, she had Adolfo when she was only 15 years old. Now, she would eventually end up having 3 kids, all of them by different fathers. I believe 2 of her husbands died, which I don't know if that's suspicious or not, but we'll get into that. Now, after her first husband died, she moved to San Juan, Puerto Rico, and then got remarried, met someone else and remarried there. Now, Delia, the mom, and Adolfo's grandmother were both Santeria priestesses. Now, Adolfo was actually baptized Catholic, and, was even an altar boy and everything like that. But just like we were saying, Catholicism has this whole extended universe. So even though he was baptized as a Catholic, he would also go with his mom on trips to Haiti and learn about voodoo. Now, according to some sources that I found, Adolfo's mother took him to, a Haitian priest, when he was still a baby, pretty much. And this priest, allegedly, said that this kid is a chosen one, and he's going to do great things. And I was just kind of like, depends on your definition of great, I guess, but okay. He was a great monster, I suppose. So, as we were talking about before, Santeria, much like voodoo, is, a religion that came from Africa with the slave trade and kind of blends Catholicism in with African, what you want to call like folk
Voodoo.
religion. Yeah, essentially.
Voodoo.
All of them are different, but they're similar. You know what I mean? So, as we mentioned, like there'll be different deities that you ask for particular things, or if they're bad deities that'll fuck you up, you give them things to kind of stave them off. That's another kind of thing. Usually it's food or booze or cigarettes. That's another big one. Or a ritual sacrifice, but it's almost always an animal. Usually a chicken. Usually
something
a
that
chicken.
a priest could eat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Because they eat the sacrifices, but they're not going to say that. But a lot of times they do.
Well, yeah. I mean, don't waste it. It's meat.
Yeah.
But, so they actually moved back to him, Constanzo and his family actually moved back to Miami in 1972 because his dad was sick at this point and he moved back to get treatment. But his stepdad died not too long after that. Now, his stepdad at this point was he wasn't wealthy, but he was like, okay, like he was comfortable, I guess, if you want to put it that way. So when he died, he left the family some money. So they were kind of like now in the middle class. Now, when Adolfo was a teenager, he was kind of, because his mom was real into Santeria and everything like that, so he was raised in that belief system. So when he was a teenager, he got apprenticed out to like a priest, a sorcerer type thing. And at this point, he started practicing Palo Mayombe, which is, again, kind of similar religion to Santeria, and involves animal sacrifice and making offerings to gods and things like that. Now, Delia, his mom, she remarried, yet again at this point, and the new stepdad was real into Palo Mayombe and also was a drug dealer. So there was that. Now, one big thing, and this will factor largely into the story going forward, one of the big things in Palo Mayombe, you make offerings to the gods in this pot. It's a cauldron, which is a ceremonial cauldron. And this is called an anganga. Now, in this, you put anything that's like consecrated, like bones or sticks or body parts or anything like that. They usually will put animal stuff in there. But there's also kind of a tradition of like grave robbing, like digging up old bones from cemeteries and stuff and putting them in there like that. The thing about the anganga is that it's almost treated as though, and I think it's perceived by believers as almost a living entity. So like whatever you put in there, kind of either strengthens it or makes it smarter or whatever. Like it's the god itself. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, for example, if you were like, oh, well, I'm doing a spell where I need strength, or I feel like my anganga needs strength, then you would, if you were on the bad side of this belief system, then you would go kill like a strong person and like put his muscles in there, like that kind of shit. You know what I mean? Or it's just like, oh, well, I want something to do with like youth, or I want youth, then they'll kill a kid and put his shit in there. You know what I mean? So it's that kind of stuff, but it's kind of considered like a living being sort of, and you feed it like whatever you think it needs at any particular time, which, like I said, this is going to come back later on because yeah, a lot of problems arose because of this kind of thing, this pot. Now, so in Miami, while they were in Miami in the 70s, the neighbors of the family would kind of notice stuff like dead animals being left on their doorsteps and stuff like that. Like if they had like any kind of dispute, any kind of beef with the Constanzo family, suddenly you have all these dead animals like showing up at your fucking doorstep, you know what I mean? Because they were putting curses on people, essentially what they were doing. Now, his mom, she later got arrested for many things, but one of the things she was arrested for was she had like 27 animals in her house. They said they went in the house and there was just like shit and blood like all over the fucking place. She wasn't much of a housekeeper, is what I'm saying. Which is kind of interesting because Adolfo, they always said, like, even from, like, a really young child, he was always, like, a super neat freak. Like, almost, like, OCD level. Like, he was always, like, super clean and everything. And I wonder, I don't know though. It's like, because I kind of thought that was maybe a reaction to like growing up in like filth and like just houses that had blood and feces all over the fucking walls. But they said he was kind of like that when he was little too, so I'm not really sure. Now his mom and Adolfo were also arrested like later on a bunch of times for stealing stuff, vandalism, shoplifting, that kind of thing. Now, according to his mom, Delia, supposedly his psychic powers were supposedly getting better and better around this time too. Some of the things that he supposedly predicted that Ronald Reagan would get shot, but that he would survive, which happened in 1980, obviously. He also allegedly predicted that big earthquake that happened in Mexico City in 1985. But like I said, people are talking about that after the fact, so I'm kind of assuming that that's probably bullshit.
Make that up.
You can just, I totally predicted that.
Yeah, you can't prove that he said that before.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's not like he wrote it down and put it in an envelope and mailed it to us. It's like it was in a safety deposit box.
Karnak
or some shit like that, you know what I mean? Yeah. It was just, but he totally predicted that. I was the only person there, but he told me that was totally going to happen.
Sounds like what is called an apocryphal tale.
It does, yeah. It does. Also, he could, again, allegedly, astral project.
Okay.
And could heal sick people. So, Now, because Constanzo was, fairly good-looking dude, he actually worked as a model for a little while. And it's not like he wasn't, like, a big deal or anything like that, but he did get some modeling work. There are a couple of pictures of him around.
How old was he during this time?
He was, like, late teens.
Okay, yeah.
I believe.
So did I.
Yeah.
I was a model in Brazil. Did I tell you about that?
No, you didn't tell me.
No, I did a commercial.
You never told me that.
2 ice cream commercials.
You never told me that ever.
You didn't say that?
How could you not tell me that?
Because it was just normal shit that I did. I had 2 ice cream commercials.
Man, I'm finding out all kind of shit. There's all kind of shit that you never told me.
It was called Kibon Ice Cream.
You never told me that.
Yeah, I chased a girl I went to school with down the fucking. We did the shit at graded high school, where we went international high school. I chased a Brazilian model down to damn high school when everybody else was in class, but they're filming it, and gave her an ice cream. That's basically it. I said something.
He's like, here, I'm not stalking you. I'm just giving you ice cream. I promise.
Chasing her and handed her the ice
I'm not gonna kill you. It's fine.
Yeah, it was like a fucking. It's like a 4-second commercial.
Oh my god! I wonder if we could find that somewhere.
Yeah, probably not. Keep on ice cream commercial.
Oh my god! Somebody go look on YouTube and find that shit. Look on the Wayback Machine.
1986.
All right, I'm gonna look for that. I can't believe you never told me that.
86 or 87.
I can't believe you never told me that.
Yeah.
See, I'm always finding out like new facts.
They had 2 different edits.
Fascinating new facts.
It was one commercial, but they had 2 different edits of it.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna find that shit.
I was pretty as fuck.
Somebody's gotta have that somewhere.
Yeah.
I'll find it. But yeah, okay, so so he did some modeling work. Like I said, it wasn't a huge deal or anything like that. But he moved to Mexico City in 1984.
They may have not used it though.
Yeah, maybe not.
Because I don't ever remember seeing it.
Oh, you never saw it? Oh, okay.
You
just remember.
But I didn't watch television.
Oh, okay.
So
I'll see if it's around.
I saw the final cut.
Just spell the ice cream name for me.
They showed me the final cut. They recruited me from the drama program at graded school.
Right.
I had to do some voiceover work from them. But when I was doing the voiceover work, I had to translate some of their other commercials into English, an English dub. They were taking that to Europe, though.
Okay.
And they showed me the edit of the little thing.
Like I said, just spell the ice cream brand for me, and I'll
keep
see
on.
Kibon.
Kibon.
K-I-B-O. Oh, okay, easy.
I think it was
just like it.
I think it was K-I. It might have been Q-U-E-B-O-M.
That's what I was thinking. I was
Kibon.
thinking it was.
Yeah, it might have been Kibon.
I was thinking
probably Q-U-E-B-O-M.
But yeah. So he moves to Mexico City in 1984. Now, while he's there, he starts doing like, essentially becoming a dude that sells spells and like magical cleansings and stuff like that to people. Now, he actually got in eventually with selling these spells to kind of people that were up in, the elite. Now, I don't know if this was the first thing. I think this was the first thing that got him into it. But he was approached by a guy, I can't remember what his name was, but he was like a pretty popular singer, like a pop star. And his career was a little bit on the decline, right? And he was kind of looking to revive his career, so he came to him to do some spells to like help him out or whatever. And the guy and Adolfo says, "Hey, I'll help you out for free if you introduce me to a bunch of celebrities." So apparently that happened. So he eventually got in with, so he got connections at that point with like, famous like actors and shit like that, and started doing stuff for them. And then that kind of extended to other elite people like politicians and whatever. So people started coming to him, and it seems like, and like I said, I'm not entirely sure like how this happened, but it does seem like a lot of the spells he did worked, or people perceived that they worked. So he started getting like a reputation. It was like, oh, this shit is like, he's really like the real thing. You know what I mean? Like his shit really works. So his name started getting around. So he did kind of have that. Now, after that, like when his name started getting around, as we mentioned before, people who are in criminal enterprises tend to be more superstitious than maybe your run-of-the-mill person. And particularly members of drug cartels were very superstitious and were always like looking for something that would protect them from the police or like keep them from getting caught. So as Adolfo's name was getting around, he started getting approached by members of drug cartels who were seeking his spells like for protection against the police. They wanted to be bulletproof and all this other kind of crap. And I think that the Haitian priest that had, told him he was going to be a chosen one or whatever, I think he also did that too. So I think there was like a connection there as well. So the rituals, always, they always had animal sacrifices, right? But the price had to do with what kind of animal was sacrificed, which I guess makes sense, right? You get like chickens, which is kind of your run-of-the-mill thing because it's chickens everywhere. Then you'd kind of go up to goats, then maybe like a boa constrictor, which was significantly more expensive. Then he was even sacrificing kind of more exotic animals like zebras and shit.
Damn.
I don't know where the fuck he was getting those. And he even did like lion cubs, which I think was the most expensive. He didn't do a full size lion because
Dude's an asshole.
that would be really stupid.
Yeah,
it's just kind of like
those are exotic animals, man.
Yeah, I don't know where he was getting from. He was getting them from somewhere, but they were super expensive.
Drug dealers.
Yeah,
we got them here. Got them up the street here.
We do, yeah.
Got a guy down there that's fucking breeding lions and giraffes and zebras, but he's the international sellers. You can't see it. He's got a huge fucking wall around it.
Yeah. Well, he doesn't want
My
them.
mom knows him, though. She dealt with him a long time ago, did business with him. He's a nice guy. He was in some kind of Tarzan movie. I think he played a Tarzan.
Oh, okay.
It's one of the Tarzans.
One of the Tarzans.
He's an old man now. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess they would be.
Yeah.
But yeah, so as he got up in the cartels and everything, like I said, he also got in with a bunch of corrupt cops, which is Mr. 88 said before. What do you call a corrupt Mexican cop? A cop. Yeah, pretty much. So, that's not entirely the case because one of them that came in like afterward that, after Constanzo was doing all this crap, like did actually want to crack down on them. But for a long time, they got away with a bunch of shit because he had police connections. You know what I mean? So that's why. And a lot of the police were helping the drug cartels, too. Like, because I'm sure they were cutting them off a piece of the money. Now, this particular cult, probably in with the Gulf cartel, maybe among others, not really sure. But yeah, he kind of knew everybody. And like I said, he had a reputation for being good at what he did, which was ritual sacrifices that would get you, like, magic shit that you wanted. And I guess people were happy with his services because he became, like, quite wealthy from it. Now, another thing about Constanzo, and I think that Xanada might have brought this up earlier, that he was, this guy was the definition of sexually ambiguous. Yeah. This dude was, it's weird because, like, a lot of the documentaries and stuff called him gay. I think that he was bisexual, and he was kind of like the very definition of bisexual. He did seem to have more,
quote unquote, some shit and he became sexual.
Well, no, what I was saying is that he did seem to have more meaningful relationships or long-term relationships with men, but not necessarily. He did have like a lot of relationships with women too, so I think he was almost kind of like completely bisexual.
This must have been where they got the inspiration for the character out of fucking Confessions of a Trick Baby Part 2. Remember that movie that we saw?
Yeah.
In that case, he was transsexual doing all this.
Right.
But it sounds like this is where they got the idea.
Maybe. There was
He was
actually
killing a bunch of people too.
there actually was a movie made loosely based on this. I think it's called Borderland. It's a horror movie, obviously. How could it be anything else? I think it came out in 2007. I've seen it, but it was a long time ago.
Put some ice in it.
Yeah, it's all melted. Yeah, so like I said, it does seem like most of his long-term lovers were men, but he did have, Sara Aldrete, who we'll talk about in a bit, who seemed to be with him for a long time, who he seemed to have some fondness for. I'm not really sure what that relationship was like. Also, I should note that he had several relationships with women, because as far as they know, he fathered at least 2 children with 2 different women, and possibly more. Now, I think that the first one of those, if I'm not mistaken, happened when he was a teenager. I think he was only 14, and I think he impregnated his 13-year-old girlfriend, and they had a baby. And then I think, like, later on in his teenage years, I think he knocked up another girl. Like I said, I don't think that he had any contact with those kids going forward, but he did have sexual relationships with women, and it did father at least 2 as far as I know, but it could be like more than that. I don't think the kids ever factored into his life in any great way. Now, so he starts several of the male lovers that he recruited at first, like that were kind of in on the ground floor of the cult, if you want to call it that. And they also kind of helped him out with his spellcasting business. These 3 guys were named Martin Quintana, Jorge Montes, and Omar Orea. Now, over time, these 3, and eventually everybody in this cult, would start referring to Constanzo as El Padrino, the Godfather. That's what they started calling him. So, at this stage, Adolfo, he's getting kind of wealthy, he's getting a reputation, and he's getting a little big for his britches, let's call it that. So because he started to think that his spells were responsible for, the big cartel's success, he's like, my spells are the reasons you guys didn't get caught, and you're making all this money, and blah, blah, blah. So one of the things he decided that he was going to do, because he wanted to make some more money, because he was making a lot of money, but not as much as the cartels. He's like, I'm going to make the cartel fucking money, right? So he goes to one of the most powerful families that he was acquainted with that had come to him, who were called the Calzadas. Now, probably stupidly, he pretty much just goes right to their compound or whatever, and essentially demands 50% of their shit. Or I'm gonna like curse you or blah blah blah.
Send that to a cartel.
Yeah.
He's got some serious balls on him.
Yeah, or he's real stupid. I mean, it could be, but it could be both.
Might be both.
And I mean, he's real young. I mean, you have to think this dude. Spoiler alert: when he died, he was, I believe, 26 years old.
Dude.
So all of this stuff is happening when he's like in his early 20s, when everyone is an idiot. You know what I mean?
He might have been a good judge of character. He looked at the head of the little cartel and he went, this fucker's he's a sucker. Maybe, you know what I mean?
It could be.
He's scared. He might have sensed fear in him. He went, okay, I got him.
Yeah, Xanada said, the documentary I sent Jenny literally showed them digging up the bodies. It was disgusting. Yeah, it was pretty gross. It's not... I don't know, it was pretty gross. I could watch it, but it was pretty gross. So it's, if you're sensitive to like seeing actual bodies being dug up and actual shit, they were digging it up with the, what do you call that thing? The thing that digs up dirt?
The thing that digs dirt.
The
steam shovel.
Well,
bulldozer.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Bulldozer.
That was the word I was trying to think of. Yeah. I know that word, I just couldn't think of it.
Yeah.
I was like, the dirt diggy thing.
The dirt thing.
The dirt diggy thing.
Yeah.
Sucks getting old, I'm telling you. My brain's getting like Swiss cheese. I can't remember words anymore. But yeah, so he just basically marches in there and says, I want half your money. Like, I want to be he wanted to be like a full business partner. He's like, because I my spells helped you out with your shit, and like, you didn't get caught, and you're making all this money. I want you to cut me off a piece of that, but half of it. So, the Calzadas are like, no. And, worse than that, one of the bodyguards, I think, like, as he was leaving the compound, like, laughed at him. You know what I mean? So at this point, Adolfo is just kind of like, yeah, no, that's not going to stand. So guess what happened? Not too long after this, 7 members of the family, or 7 members of the compound, because some of them weren't related, some were employees, mysteriously disappeared. I wonder where they could have gone. Later on, their bodies were found. I believe they were dredged out of a river. And they had clearly been tortured. They had their fingers and toes missing. Their ears were missing. Their genitals had been cut off. A couple of their brains were missing. One of the bodies even had the spine removed. Apparently, the young girl, she was a maid of the family, and she was like a teenager. She had her heart cut out. Now, it turned out later, reportedly, like after they caught him and all this stuff came out, that what had happened was that he had lured the members of the family to this location by saying, man, I feel really bad about coming to your place and getting in this big fight with you because I was wanting half your money. Like, I must have been possessed by a demon, and I maybe infected you guys with this demon, and I will give you a free cleansing to show how sorry I am. Right? So all of them were like, okay, sounds legit. And they went to this place. I mean,
let me kill you.
They were suspicious. But evidently what happened, like, they get there, you know, they brought bodyguards and everything. They get there and they have the room like all set up like it was going to be a cleansing room. So there's candles and all kind of shit like it was supposed to look. So he comes in there and Costanzo's all apologetic and, man, I'm so sorry, I must have been possessed or whatever. And then one of his henchmen comes in and just fucking blows them all away.
Damn.
So that's apparently what happened. And then they mutilated them and dumped them in the fucking river.
So all the torture stuff was done post-mortem.
As far as I know,
Okay.
Like I said, a lot of the shit that came out about it is just from various cult members that admitted shit to police. So I don't know how accurate a lot of it is because they didn't find out about this stuff until afterward, until like after 1989. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they could be making shit up or not remembering shit right or whatever because no one was there that, you know, and Constanzo is dead. So, and he would have probably never confessed anyways. So, yeah, so everybody got blown away and then they all got cut up and stuff. I don't know, like I said, I don't know if he tied them up and tortured them first because, that'll come later. Just wait. Now, also around this time, possibly because, now he had killed all this members of this powerful cartel family, the Calzadas. Now, one family that he did kind of know of, who were kind of smaller time drug dealers, but he kind of wanted to get in. He wanted to get in with the big cartel family so he could make more money, right? That's what he was trying to do. So to that end, he takes up with this college student by the name of Sara Aldrete. Now, she was a very tall girl. She was 6'1". She was very striking, quite a good-looking woman. Now, eventually, over time, she would become his second in command. She would eventually be known as La Madrina, the godmother. Now, Sarah was born in 1964. She grew up in a regular, normal-ass, middle-class family in Matamoros, in Mexico, which is right near the border with Texas. And she actually went to high school and college in Brownsville, Texas, right across the bridge. Now, when she was a college student, everybody said she was a delightful, delightful person. Straight A student. She was a cheerleader. But on the other side of that, she was also super interested in the occult. And because of some family connection through somebody she dated in school, she kind of knew a lot about drug cartels. The weird thing about it is that she seemed to have been completely living a double life. Like when she was in Texas, like in college and stuff, she was just like straight A cheerleader college student. But when she would go over the border to Mexico, it was all about occult and drug dealing. You know what I mean?
It's not that uncommon.
And people didn't know. Like people didn't seem to know.
That's not that uncommon.
Yeah,
there
I guess
are rings of female assassins, Mexican cartel assassins. They're female. And they have weird initiation rites where they're necrophilia, where they have sex with the dead victims and all kinds of weird shit. Bathing in blood, Countess Bathory shit. And they're young. Late teens, early 20s. Evidently hotties, too. I don't know if they all survived, the ones I was thinking of. Somebody might be able to drop in the comment section what ring of girls I was talking. I think there was like 4 or 5 of them. And I think they were all killed eventually by the Mexican army, but they killed fucking dozens and dozens of other cartel members and stuff. They were assassins. Because who's going to suspect, hot chick of being an assassin,
Yeah, I mean,
They try to pick these dudes up, and then they
it's
bring them
unusual.
into a kill zone and fucking murder them.
It's unusual.
And they were like,
for sure.
to initiate the new girls, they had to have sex with the dude that they killed after he was dead in a bathtub.
Because then they'd have something to hold over. you,
Yeah,
right?
there's some. Well,
And
they were witches.
yeah.
Well,
That's kind of what this chick was too.
yeah.
And like I said, I mean, we'll get into talking about her in a bit, but she was, by all accounts, was interested in the occult before she hooked up with this dude. She tried to say later that, he forced her and blah, blah, blah. I don't think that's the case. I think she loved this shit. She seemed to. Case and Lee says, you guys watch the documentary series Terror in the Jungle. It's a mind-blowing documentary on Jonestown suicides. Ooh, I don't think I've seen that yet. I've seen a lot of documentaries about that, though. Like, one of the worst ones that I saw was almost all footage that they took. What the fuck was that called? I can't remember what it was. I think
pretty good.
I saw it in a theater like
Yeah.
a long time, and that was one of the most depressing fucking things.
Yeah,
I've
it's
ever
old.
seen. Yeah, it's old. Yeah, I saw it back in the early 2000s or mid 2000s or something like that, like at an indie theater. But yeah, so here's this chick, right? Now, how this all came about. Like I said, Constanzo was trying to get in with a cartel family, and one of the cartel families that he kind of had connections with that weren't huge, but they were still, small-time drug dealers, were the Hernandez family. Now, what happened was that Sara Aldrete, she went to college with a guy named Serafin Hernandez Garcia. And his uncle, she dated his uncle, whose name was Elio Hernandez Rivera. And they were marijuana smugglers. A ton per week is what they estimate.
That's what it takes.
I mean, not huge,
Yeah.
big time, but kind of on the middle scale of drug dealers, right?
Yeah.
So she was dating this guy that was kind of like a mid-tier drug dealer. Now, this whole family enterprise, the head of it at this time, in the mid-'80s, was Saul Hernandez Rivera, who was Elio's older brother. So Elio was the one that was dating Sara Aldrete. Now, he got assassinated in 1987. And then at that point, there was all kind of the family was all fighting and everything, because they were all jockeying for position, right? But Elio actually turned out to be the new head of the firm, of the establishment, or whatever. And he went to Constanzo to get spells and stuff like that for protection and power and stuff like that. So Sara apparently was also there, at his initiation ceremony. Now, as time went on, all of the members of the Hernandez family / drug dealing gang cartel, they started kind of getting more under the power of Constanzo and his cult beliefs. Because he would do sacrifices for them, ritual animal sacrifices, and it would appear to work. They just kept getting away with shit, and they didn't get caught, and they just were really thinking that he was the man. You know what I mean? So, as the longer that went on, the more power he was able to have over them, and they actually absolutely believed that he had magic powers. I mean, it really does seem that they really did believe that. The thing about Sara Aldrete that's kind of interesting. Later on, after this whole cult was exposed, they thought that maybe because she was so striking, she was so tall and she was very pretty, that she was probably used to lure more people into the cult.
Love bombing.
Right. Yeah, they think that maybe that was one of her main roles. She did allegedly participate in some of the stuff, but I don't know how... But she knew what was going on for sure, even though later she said she didn't. I don't know how hands-on she was with some of the shit that was going on later, but she for sure knew what was going on, even though later she said she didn't know anything about it. One of the things she would do, and I thought this was kind of interesting because we've reviewed this movie. So apparently her favorite movie in the fucking world was The Believers, that 1987 movie with Martin Sheen in it.
Which one was that?
That was the one about the Santeria. I think it was the Santeria cult in New York City, and all those people were turning up dead. We reviewed it not to. It's a good movie. I really like it.
I remember that one.
She loved that movie, and she kind of seems to have used it as a recruiting tool. Like and people that she would bring into the fold, like they would watch it like over and over and over, almost like she was trying to like convert them, like by showing them this movie. Even though the movie was like fairly accurate in some ways, but you know, it was kind of overstated in other ways.
She wanted
But
to see that because she's showing these new people that what they're doing is fucking known about and elevated by Hollywood production.
Yeah.
So she's, you know, it is glamorizing it.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So she would show this movie to people that she was kind of supposedly trying to get into the cult or trying to like show her religious beliefs. It's weird because she seemed to be studying in college. She was studying physical education. I think she wanted to be like a teacher.
Yeah.
And like I said, students at the school thought she was totally normal. But then she was doing all this stuff, like when she would go to Mexico. You know, and actually it was so bad that later on, like after they all got caught, like investigators thought maybe she had like multiple personality disorder or something like that. Like but I think she was just able to like compartmentalize. But yeah, she's still alive nowadays, as far as I know. A lot of the other ones aren't.
She's only a couple years older than me.
Yeah, she's pretty young. So, Constanzo, you know, Adolfo Constanzo, and his followers at this point. I'm not sure how many he had, but it was quite a few. So they set up their little base of operations at a place called Rancho Santa Elena. Now, this was near Matamoros. I believe it's about 20 miles outside of kind of the, you know, downtown of Matamoros, if you want to call it that. Now, this property had been owned by the Hernandez family. Now, at this stage, prior to this, it seems like they had mostly been doing the rituals and sacrificing animals. But it seems at this point, I mean, it's possible that they could have murdered people before this. I'm not really sure. But it seems like right around this time that the cult decided that, you know, we can put all these animals and like, you know, bones that we robbed from graves and stuff like that into the anganga, the, you know, the ceremonial cauldron. And that's cool. And it seems to be working and everything. But wouldn't it be much better and like give us much more power, much more strength and stuff like that if we sacrificed live humans instead of just animals? Now, so they got this idea. So over the next, you know, short period of time, a bunch of mutilated bodies started turning up around Mexico City. Now, one of these people who was murdered, and this was believed to be the first brain that was inserted into the anganga, the first human brain, anyway. They would put animal brains and stuff in there. Because if you, like I said, the anganga is kind of like a thing, like a being. And so if you want it to think, you have to put a brain in it, right? I mean, makes sense. So they had put animal brains and stuff like that. But as far as I know, as far as my research took me, the first human brain that was put in there was from a transvestite that one of them knew. Like, she lived in the same building as one of his followers. And the follower's like, man, like, she's such a pain in the ass. She's always, like, in the hallway, like, smooching on underage boys and, like, blocking the stairs and blah, blah, blah. And so he was like, she's a pain in the ass. And then so Adolfo was like, well, do you want me to, like, take care of her? And he didn't say no. So Constanzo's like, okay, well, maybe we'll do that. So they go to her apartment and basically tied her to a chair, cut off her fingers and toes, cut off her ears, cut off the penis, and then they were like, well, now we better kill her because she's screaming her head off, obviously. And, you know, the neighbors are going to call the cops. Which
they did it while she was alive?
Yeah, they did all this while, yeah.
Wow.
And they're like, well, we need the brain to put in the anganga because the anganga needs to think. We need a brain. So they cut off the top of the skull and popped the brain out.
While he was alive?
And took it, yeah.
Damn.
And so...
Couldn't be.
Well, I mean, you know. I'm sure she wasn't alive after, like, while they were doing it. I mean,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? But cutting off the toes and fingers and ears and stuff. Well, the reason that they did that was because you could stay alive longer. I mean, you're not going to die from getting a finger cut off or a toe cut off or even your penis cut off.
That's a lot of blood loss.
It is, yeah. But it's like I think they kind of did it slowly.
Damn.
But they needed a brain, so they took the brain.
Damn.
And
how'd they cut the top of the head off, did they say?
Probably a machete. That's what they usually use.
Okay, that would have killed him. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, well, obviously, if you're going to do that, they're just like, yeah, we need the brain.
Well, there's a way to cut it off
out
and keep him alive.
Well, yeah, but I don't
you
think...
need a little circular saw.
But they were just like in an apartment building. I'm sure
Right,
they didn't really want to go
yeah.
too crazy with it. And like I said, they were screaming and everything. So they kind of cut up the body and put it in bags and stuff and just like threw them in, you know, garbage cans, like around the city and stuff like that. So as I said... At this point, once they decided that, man, human sacrifice was the way to go because it would make the anganga so much more powerful and all their spells a lot more powerful, they just went to fucking town, it seems like. Now, a lot of the things I read, a lot of the essays I read, a lot of the documentaries and stuff like that, say that many of the cult's victims were, like, rivals, like their drug rivals and stuff like that. Which is true as far as it goes, but I think that's a little dismissive because, one, they're not entirely sure how many people they killed, and there are stories that they probably just killed random-ass people that they kidnapped off the street because they're like, oh, the anganga needs a heart or needs something like that, and they would just snatch somebody off the street. They think also that they sacrificed, well, at least one kid that they know of, but maybe more than that. You know what I mean? If the anganga needed youth... then they would go snatch a kid off because they absolutely had no compunctions about doing that. They really did. They seemed, as it went on, they kind of got, he was trying to get his followers like desensitized.
Yeah, to killing people.
To doing this stuff. And he would make, because it does seem from what I heard that at first, like some of his followers were like, oh man, this is fucked up. You know what I mean? And like we're throwing up and stuff. But he would make them do shit. It's like he would make them do shit like to people's dead bodies. Like even after they were dead, like we'll cut it up and do this and that. He was trying to desensitize them. So he did that as well. So yeah, so like I said, he takes this brain and puts it in the anganga, and they had all of these other victims. Yes, many of them were rival, but a lot of it was just kind of small time shit. You know what I mean? It's just kind of like, hey, here's these two guys who said that these other drug people could move their shit through this field, and Constanzo didn't like that, so he's like, let's go kill those dudes. You know what I mean? So it wasn't like, oh, everybody they killed was also bad people. I don't think it was like that.
They were just targets of opportunity.
They were just targets of opportunity. And like I said, I'm pretty sure that some of them were just like snatched off the street, just random ass people, because they needed somebody. So there was that. What they would normally do, so they had a shack like on the ranch. And that's usually where they would take the people. And they would torture them for a long time. Usually also Adolfo would rape them. The interesting thing about this, and I saw a couple documentaries point this out, they said he was real keen to make his followers, torture the people, like cut off their fingers and their penises and stuff. But when he raped them, he would make everybody leave.
Maybe he had performance anxiety.
Maybe, yeah, it's like he'll cut people's brains out, but it's like he can't like have people watching him like sodomize the people, which I thought was very
too much pressure, too much performance.
I guess
too
it's
much
not that weird.
Pressure, yeah.
But yeah, that was one of the ways he would like torture them.
Maybe he wasn't very impressive.
Yeah, maybe he didn't want anybody.
Anyway,
to see
yeah, his little fucking 2-inch willy.
Xanada said Jenny did a deep dive on this one, I can tell. Yeah, I mean, this is some crazy shit.
She's good at that, man. She'll investigate. She'll fucking.
Well, and especially if it's true crime stuff, it's just kind of like I just get all down a rabbit hole. You know what I mean? Yeah, and for like 2 days, I'll just be like reading about this horrible
2-3 days,
shit.
She'll be fucking pulling it up.
Just reading about this horrible shit.
Her in that brain is a fucking encyclopedia of this kind of shit.
Yeah.
She's got a good memory too.
Which I'm not sure if that's like a good thing, but you know,
I don't understand.
That's just the way my brain works. I can't help it. That's just what my brain is interested in. I'm just like, there's not much I can do about that.
Well, she's a horror writer and she does a bunch of other shit.
Yeah, I just love that kind of shit. It's just like I don't love it because obviously horrible things happen to innocent people, but I have like a weird...
That's how she ended up with a crazy motherfucker like me.
I think probably, yeah. Well, but the thing about it is that
I'm not so bad.
in hindsight, like in comparison,
yeah,
you are not crazy.
yeah,
at all.
right, yeah.
This dude is fucking crazy.
I'm bad, but I'm not so bad that you can't fuck me. See, that's the deal.
And you're not really that bad. Like I said, compared to the motherfuckers I read about every day, you're not even on the scale.
No,
you're not even on the spectrum.
I have some honor.
Right.
If I fuck you up, there's a reason.
And I think that's true of most people.
Yeah.
You know.
Most people would agree with me fucking you up if I fuck you up. If they knew the details, like, yeah, I'd fuck that dude up too. So
that's what I'm saying. Like most of the time when you say it's like, yeah, I'd fuck that dude, I'm like, yeah, I probably would too.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And Justice for Me said, anyone bring Viagra to the ritual? Yeah, it's like, why didn't you do that? I don't know.
Yeah.
Like apparently
that's a good drug.
It is.
It's one of the best.
Tom loves that shit.
I love Viagra. I love Viagra. I love testosterone. I love steroids. I love hormones.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah. I love trend, but Jen won't let me do it anymore.
You're putting that on me now? That I won't let you do it?
No, it's correct, though.
I told you. It's like, I wouldn't
right.
stop you from doing anything, but you have to understand that actions have consequences.
Yeah.
You can do it if you want, but I'm gonna move out.
I'll end up in prison.
Yeah. You know what I mean?
When I was on trend, I became the Goblin.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
You did.
Yeah, the Green Goblin.
Yeah, Xander also said this case is almost too crazy to believe. Yeah, this is out there. I mean, this is out there. Like I said, this was during the Satanic Panic. This is kind of what they were saying all these cults were doing in the United States, which they weren't. But these people were doing it. These people were doing it. And they have like but you know, as far as I know, this is really the worst one.
Here's the difference though. The reality of the fucking Satanic Panic was in Mexico. And it was scumbags running this little 2-bit cults running around killing people and trying to make money off drug cartels. The North American fantasy of a satanic cult was a rich, powerful, elevated fucking organization on par with the fucking Catholic Church that was breeding babies for sacrifice, and they were everywhere. They were in all the nodes of control. They were in the cops. They were in the fucking
it was this huge
schools.
network.
They were fucking in the government. It was a fucking
that's a little
grandiose paranoia.
Yeah.
And that they controlled rock and roll music and all the fucking record companies and shit.
Yeah, they made them put all these like subliminal messages in there to get your children converted.
Backwards masking and shit.
Right.
It was a fucking awesome fantasy. And if you liked heavy metal, fucking you played into it and it became black metal and
because
Venom
that's fucking hilarious, man.
Yeah, it was, but
that's fucking hilarious to like maybe it's like, oh yeah, we're totally doing that. Totally.
I blame Geraldo Rivera.
I blame him for a lot of things.
He had a lot to do with that, and I blame Sally Jesse Raphael.
Yeah, all the daytime talk
and Phil
shows.
Donahue.
Well, you can blame them on the one hand, but you also kind of have to blame the people that were watching that shit too.
Yeah, they were
and believing it.
Unemployed people in unemployed.
Because I watched it too, but I knew it was all bullshit.
It was mostly unemployed women,
and I just thought it was very funny.
Who stayed at home.
But it has real consequences.
Yeah.
That's why it's shitty.
And watch that shit all fucking morning long.
And that's being like pounded into your brain like day after day that all of this stuff is going on, even though it's not. Like all that shit was fucking fake.
That was in a time when fucking television ruled the roost. It was the internet of the day. Boy, I can't even go back and watch old television programs. That's how low quality the information was. I didn't realize it, but television made you stupider. It made you dumb as fuck watching
I believe that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Xana said, Geraldo Rivera gave away American troop positions live on air during the Second Iraq War. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. Guy is a tool. Yeah, he's a giant tool. And like I said, all of that kind of... you can't blame them directly because people are watching it. If people weren't watching it, they wouldn't do it. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like a double-edged sword. It's like if you don't like it, don't watch it. And if nobody watched it, then they wouldn't make it. You know? That too. But yeah, I can totally blame. Like, Geraldo Rivera is a fucking tool. He's still a fucking tool.
Yeah,
Is he still alive?
That whole generation of fucking television.
They're all kind of tools.
They were all fucking tools.
To be honest.
Yeah, they were all tools.
Yeah. So
the only one that was kind of not a tool was Ricky Lake, because she was obvious that she was just about fun. That she didn't take any of that shit seriously.
Yeah,
Ricky
see,
Lake?
yeah, I remember that. Like, I didn't even mind, like, the ones that were just about, like, silly topics.
Yeah.
But, you know, the ones that were kind of, like, you know, about Satanists or all this other kind of stuff. Like I said, that is...
The important question about Ricky Lake is that was she cuter when she was skinny or when she got fat? Because some people preferred fat Ricky Lake.
I think she was kind of cute either way.
Yeah.
Well, she was in Hairspray.
Yeah.
The John Waters movie.
Yeah.
And I thought she was quite cute in that.
Yeah,
as Tracy Turnblad.
Yeah.
And the whole point of that character was that she was, you know, heavy.
Yeah.
But I thought she was cute as shit in that.
Cute.
But
when she first started the show, though, she wasn't that heavy. She gained weight later on the Ricky Lake show. At least she lost weight first.
Yeah, she kind of went up and down.
And then she fucking gained weight.
She kind of went up and down.
And there was like a fucking group of guys that during those days would be like, well, what was better, skinny Ricky Lake or fat Ricky Lake? Ricky Lake, she wasn't really fat; she was just chubby. Chubby Ricky Lake was cute.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah.
When she got thin, she still looked good, but she kind of looked like generic.
Generic, yeah.
Like when she was heavier, she kind of had her own thing going on, and I was kind of like, yeah, I like that game. It's like I like that. Like I said, I especially liked her in Hairspray.
She looked like she could give.
She was adorable in it.
She looked like she could give head. When she was fat, it was like, yeah, she'd probably be good at giving head. That's not me saying that. That my friends were saying that too.
Really?
Yeah.
Me and
Steve were like, there's just something she could probably give head.
What are the parameters of that?
Something about the mouth and the face.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
but she probably would have had the same thing if she was thin, though.
No, there's something different about it.
Oh, okay.
Fat girls fucking give good head. They tend to.
Interesting.
Yeah, oral fixation, maybe.
I had heard that before, but I'm not sure if that's true across the board. But like I said,
well, you know, I got a big body count. I'll tell
well,
you,
that's
but
what I mean.
heavier girls.
You're a
actually,
statistical outlier, so maybe you can.
Yeah. I did kind of note that.
Noted.
Yeah, I kind of noted that.
In his little book about
heavier,
who gives the best blowjobs. Yeah. Tom's book of best blowjobs.
Yeah.
Oh, it's like
back in those days,
I've noticed that girls over X pounds give whatever percentage
they were
better
also more
blowjobs.
aggressive. They were also more aggressive. They'd fucking track your ass down to fucking blow you.
Track your ass down.
I told you that story. Fucking Carrie's sister.
Yeah.
Well,
you know, they don't got nothing to lose, man. They're just kind of like, and they're used, and I guess they're kind of getting used to like passed over. Yeah. So like, I'm just gonna go after what I want. God damn it.
They gotta shine at something. They do shine. Sure. They do shine at that. Yeah.
I mean, they're not all like that, obviously, because I know a lot of girls that weren't like that. But yeah, I know what you're talking about, though. Yeah. I know what you're talking about.
They try harder.
Yeah. Oh, well, I mean, you kind of have to have something to offer.
Yeah. Right.
Because when you're heavier, you don't. You know, a lot of dudes won't look at you, so you have to kind of
although you know,
come at it a different
talked
way.
about it before. There are some women that actually can really genetically just carry weight. They look real good. You know what I mean? The brothers know what I'm talking about. They got some women that. The thing is, though, is that you can only do that for a certain amount of time. Once they start hitting in their 30s and 40s, a lot of times the skin just can't hold up to that amount of fucking gravity. But they got Instagram models that are at least fucking 60, 70 pounds overweight, but they're fucking curvy as hell. They look good.
Yeah, it's all where it is.
It's where it is.
Where it's distributed.
If it's real fucking hourglass, then you can get away with it.
Danny says BBW Ricky Lake was hotter.
I think she was.
And also Serial Mom Ricky was hot. Oh, we need to review Serial Mom. Yeah. That's a John Waters movie. Yeah. Ricky Lake was in that. Kathleen Turner was in that. Oh, it's so good. I love that movie. We need to do more John Waters movies now that I'm thinking about it. I think we've...
Oh, they're going off and on about Amen Tom. Who said this shit? I just saw... Who said
And Justice for Me.
Who said that?
And Justice for Me said, Amen Tom, chrome off a trailer hitch.
Yeah, exactly.
I have heard that,
Yeah.
I have heard that,
Yeah. Well, they try hard.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I was heavier in high school, but I don't know if that was true of me. Probably not. Probably not. I never had anybody say that about me that I know of. So I don't really know. Yeah. So let's see. Where were we? Okay. So we get off on these fucking tangents. Why does that always happen? So yeah. Okay. So their whole thing was that when they were doing this to the people, they tried to do as much as possible when the people were still alive. Like, they would cut off fingers, cut off toes, cut off genitals, like, fuck with it. It was usually men that they targeted. I don't know if they killed a lot of women. I think all the bodies that they found were men. So they would, cut off their ears. That was another big thing. And they would also, I think a couple times they even tried to skin them alive. So there was that too. Because they believed that the more the victim suffered and the more that they screamed, then the more powerful their body parts would be when you put them in the anganga. You know what I mean? So some motherfucker that just, like, sat there and was all stoic and shit like that shit wasn't going to work. You had to have somebody that was, like, freaking out and, like, that was in a lot of pain. They thought that would make that, like, a lot more powerful. So that's why they were doing a lot of this stuff to people. So apparently what they would do is that they would take the body parts and then put them in the cauldron and then kind of boil them. And then the followers would, like, drink out of that, which I know is gross as shit. That, like, makes me want to gag. And they thought that by drinking out of the anganga, that it made them bulletproof and also invisible to law enforcement. Spoiler alert, it did not, but they thought that it did. Also, and this is fun, this will come up later when we're talking about the murder of Mark Kilroy, another thing that they did was that they would wear necklaces made out of their victims' backbones. And there was a very special particular way that they would get them out, and it's pretty fun. Not really, but I'm just saying. So, yeah. Now, they also had, like, all the cult members that had killed somebody. They got their little branding kind of marks. They would put, like, little marks. They would heat up a knife, and they would put kind of... Everybody had, like, a different mark. You had, like, a different little shape or a different figure or whatever. And they would put that, like, all over you, like little hatch marks or whatever. Now, I will say that this habit that they had of occasionally just, like, snatching some fucking people off the street if they needed a sacrifice, at least one time, kind of worked against them. Because what happened this one particular time was that they were like, okay, well, we need somebody to sacrifice, like, toot sweet. So you guys need to just go out and just grab the first person you see. It doesn't matter who it is. So they went out onto the ranch, because it was like a big, property or whatever. And they just grabbed the first person they saw, which happened to be a 14-year-old boy. Now, they put a hood over his head, and they brought him back to the shack where they would do the shit. Now, Hernandez, he takes a machete and lops the kid's head off.
Damn.
He takes the hood off. It's his cousin.
Ooh!
That worked on the farm.
Damn.
And then, like, the mom also lived there, and she's like, where did my kid go? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they're just like, we don't know. I mean, apparently he was real broken up about it, but it's like, well, that's...
Shouldn't have got involved in that shit. What goes around comes around.
That should be a red flag right there. It's like, one, before you cut someone's head off, at least check who it is.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really messed up. It's like... I was like, I heard that, and I was just like, oh my god, that is fucking horrible. That is fucking horrible. It's a 14-year-old kid.
Yeah.
He just happened to be the first person. He like, worked on the farm. He, like, took care of the animals or something.
Yeah.
And they just saw him, it's like, hey, there's one. And they, the guys who grabbed him didn't know who he was. So they just brought him to the thing, and he had a hood over his head, and the guy was like, all right, I'll just do this real quick to show that I'm a member of the cult. And he's like, oh, shit. And he was real broken up about it.
Idiots can do a lot of damage.
Yeah. That's the lesson there.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of lessons there, but that is one of the main lessons. Yes. Idiots do a lot of damage. Now, at this stage, this is spring of 1989. Now, Adolfo says to his cult people, I want you to bring me a gringo, a white man, for the next sacrifice. Because this is going to bring us more power for us. Now, this request, reportedly, this is what I've heard, came after another sacrifice that he had done, like, recently. And the dude that he sacrificed absolutely did not scream he didn't make a fucking peep the whole time. Like, even though he was being tortured and shit like that. And this upset Adolfo a lot, because he's just because I think you were in the bathroom, but he believed that the more they screamed, the more they suffered, the more powerful the magic would be.
He must have overheard him say that.
So if he just like sits there and doesn't like won't give him the satisfaction, and a guy, like I said, apparently did not give him, didn't make a peep.
Took it like a fucking soldier. Yeah.
Right, and he just didn't make a noise. So Constanzo, that one was no good. I can't use that dude's parts in the anganga.
Years back, I saw a video, because I get sent videos every now and then. Fucking Murder Hornet sent me some of them. I couldn't fucking... Saw one where the cartel was cutting off this woman's head. She was alive. They would cut it off with a fucking pocket knife, basically small 3-inch knife, for being a rat. And she leaned into it. She didn't make a fucking sound. She just looked at that dude in the fucking
didn't want to give him the satisfaction.
Yeah,
I mean, she probably knew it was going to happen anyway.
That dude fucking cut her head off looking at her. Yeah, that was fucking... And she didn't make a sound.
Well, apparently this guy... That takes some balls right there.
Yeah, and a woman, they have a higher pain threshold than
generally
men.
they do, yeah.
But fucking still, he hacked her fucking head off.
I feel like getting your head cut off is a whole other level.
It wasn't chopped, it was cut off. And it was fucking bad.
The spite that she had was more powerful.
Yeah, she leaned into it and looked at him and fucking...
She's like, fuck you, buddy.
Yeah.
That's my hero right there.
So I guess that's how you do it.
Because, like I said, they're gonna kill you anyway.
Yeah.
So you might as well not give them the satisfaction.
Yeah.
Although I kind of feel like most people are gonna scream whether they want to or not, because shit's very
She wasn't a civilian. She was in the cartel too.
Right. So she knew.
Yeah.
Xander said, "Wow, I'd never heard that story about." Yeah. So that's what I heard anyway, that he had sacrificed a dude, but the dude didn't make any sound. Like, he didn't scream, and he's like, well, it doesn't work. That's, that was a wasted one. So he's like, so I kind of want somebody that he called soft. And he particularly wanted, here's another weird thing. He also wanted the brain, a new brain for his anganga. And he wanted a smarter brain. So he specifically, I've heard that he specifically asked for a med student, which is what this guy was. But he wanted somebody that was an American college student, because he thought that would be like a smarter, like a superior brain that he could put in his cauldron. You know what I mean?
Also, one of the smart ass gringos.
Yeah. Also, he thought that, well, everybody we've sacrificed thus far has been Mexican, and that's worked out for us on this side of the border. Like, we haven't been caught, or nothing bad has happened. But it's like, if we sacrifice an American, then that protection will be extended like to that side of the border. So he seemed to believe that, or that's what he told his followers anyway. So he was basically like, hey, go get me a white dude. So there was that. So the victim that they ended up getting, and this was quite a famous case. This was on America's Most Wanted and everything, like back when it happened, back in 1989, was Mark Kilroy. Now, he was originally from Santa Fe, Texas, not Santa Fe, New Mexico. And he was kind of like the platonic ideal of like the all-American guy. You know what I mean? He was quite tall, pretty good looking, had like blonde hair. He was really good at school. Like, he was one of the top students. He was a really good athlete. He played all these different sports: baseball, basketball, golf, blah, blah, blah. He was a Boy Scout. He was an honor student. He was on the student council, all this other kind of shit. So he graduated from high school in 1986. And then he went to Southwest Texas State University. That's in San Marcos, Texas. And then he transferred to, is it Tarleton or Tarleton? I'm not really sure. I'm not from Texas. In Stevensville, and he went there on a basketball scholarship. So that's how good an athlete he was. He was in a fraternity and everything like that. But then he decided he was going to go to med school. So he went to the University of Texas at Austin and went into pre-med. So classes let out for spring break on March 10th, 1989. So Mark and 3 of his friends, whose names were Bradley Moore, Bill Huddleston, and Brent Martin, they're going to go down to Mexico for spring break, as thousands and thousands of college students did then and likely still do. So at first they went to South Padre Island in Texas. And they were gonna, just do spring break shit. They were gonna like hang out on the beach, try to pick up girls, drink a lot, and blah blah blah. And at night they were gonna go over to Matamoros in Mexico, which is literally walking distance. You just walk across the bridge and you're in Mexico. You know what I mean? And obviously the drinking age in Mexico is much lower than it is in the United States. So that's why a lot of college kids would walk over there. You know what I mean? So they could go and drink and everything was fine. And there was like tons of tourists and all that other kind of stuff. So I put down this little detail because I thought you would appreciate this, Tom. One of the things that they did while they were on their spring break, their hotel would have every day a beauty contest, but it was very specifically a Miss Tan Line contest.
I love tan lines.
I know, that's why I thought that was funny, and I thought I would write that. I'm like, wouldn't they run out of women with... I guess not.
I got
Every single day they're having that?
I got the tan line fetish back in the 70s when I was a little kid living in California. Fucking, I just thought girls would fucking take a lot of sun.
Well, apparently you're not the only one, because they had a whole beauty contest back in the late 1980s.
Yeah. And
Judging
who
had the best
tan
tan
those
lines.
fucking tan lines a lot.
That's so very funny.
They were even showing tan lines like in fucking Penthouse and Hustler back in those days. I was like fucking advertising some chick's tan line. It's kind of like you see the lines of underwear, lingerie on the woman, and she's not wearing anything. So she's got clothes on and clothes off at the same time.
Yeah, Tom digs that.
Yeah, I dig that.
Well, that's why I wrote that whole thing down, because one, I thought it was kind of funny because I was like, wow, what a specific beauty contest. But I was like, oh, Tom loves tan lines.
I love them,
So
yeah.
I'm going to write that down because I have to remember to mention that.
That's out of style. You don't see it anymore.
Not really. Yeah. But yeah. Oh, shit. I think I forgot to mention, I should have mentioned this at the beginning, but we got like kind of off on a thing. We have a new patron.
Oh, we do? Okay.
Yeah. I meant to mention at the very beginning, but I only just remembered now.
That's good.
Kelly G.
Kelly G.
So hi, Kelly G. She also sent me like a really nice message. She sent me a couple messages
What'd she
before, and she was just like, I swear I'm not your lesbian stalker.
Okay, yeah.
But
she's a lesbian stalker.
Because she's like, I got my husband into your show, and it's just
right.
like he'll watch the stuff and everything. But she thinks I'm hilarious, which is, I am kind of hilarious.
No, she is, yeah.
But, probably not as hilarious as you are, but I'm...
No, everybody's hilarious.
But I'm also pretty
Shake
hilarious.
that drink up.
What? Shake it? Oh,
See
yeah.
it?
Oh, my shit's
Yeah,
settling
you got
on
to
the
look at
bottom.
it.
Well, what am I supposed to do about
This
it?
is what I did. Out in the back, I grow passion fruit. I make my
Passion
own
fruit?
passion fruit. I make my own passion fruit juice as they fall off the fucking tree, off the vine.
All right. I got to pee, though.
Hold on, let me do it. Go ahead.
I got to pee.
So what did she say in the comments?
Well, she didn't say anything.
That's it.
I just no. She sent me an email,
Uh-huh.
but I just remembered that I was supposed to mention that she's a new patron.
Okay.
I just remembered.
I'm just kind of mixing up her drink. Jen will be back in a second. But no, I'll go ahead and plug patrons. Of course, we don't... The show is mostly demonetized. We do get ad revenue on some stuff, but usually because of the content of what we're talking about, we get demonetized. So the show basically survives off now patrons. And we do that shit off Patreon. We do get some super chats, and every now and then we'll get a super thanks. If you are listening to the show recorded and you send a super thanks, we almost always respond to that super thanks fucking in a text. So I just want to thank y'all who have already given us a super thanks, and encouraging other people to give super thanks and super chats, because that's how we keep the show going. Let me see what we have going here. See if I have anybody who's talking. Now, Murder Hornet says that Mango Badger was the genital mutilator. No, I don't know about that.
Genital mutilator?
Yeah.
What did I miss?
And then Xanada said the Bee's Nest Murder Hornet probably hung out with this guy. Yeah, probably. Murder Hornet. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Jenny's the brains of the operation. Tom is the comic relief. Well, really, when we first started the show, we kind of had a an Abbott and Costello kind of fucking thing where she was the straight man and I was the comic relief. That was usually how it went. Some of the fucking younger audience didn't really respond to that too well. It's like, why does he keep interrupting? It's a show. We're trying to kill time. You're at work or you're driving. I do the same thing. Okay, I like to listen to Wang. There's a lot of shows I like to listen to when I'm driving. Especially, I drove from here to Mississippi listening to Wang the whole time. Man, he killed fucking 10 hours of drive, and it was like that.
I mean, I used to listen to like Simon Whistler,
Yeah,
driving back and forth like on my long commute to and from work.
And there are some YouTube shows that I fucking will put on if I want to go to sleep. And it's no disrespect to that show. I love that show. And it keeps you relaxed.
It's just kind of comforting, yeah.
And I fucking just kind of drift off. And then I'll go back and listen to them over and over again, So, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Side Quest Hero.
Side
just
Quest
showed
Heroes.
up and gave us a super chat.
Yeah, I think it's a female. Isn't Side Quest Humor? I think it's a female.
I mean, the picture looks like, but
yeah,
it's like...
Thank you very much,
I
Side
can't
Quest
really
Hero.
see. Yeah, Xana said, I never heard the story about the guy chopping his own cousin's head off. That's fucked up.
Yeah,
now,
that's wild,
some of the sources I saw said it was his nephew, but one of the more definitive ones said it was his cousin. So it was either his nephew or his cousin. I mean, it was still a relative. And they were 14.
Yeah.
Can you fucking imagine?
That's a little baby.
Yeah, can you fucking imagine? It's like, well, one, like I said, lesson there, don't just be like snatching random people up. Hey, let's just snatch a random person up and then cut their head off. Yeah, let's not do that. Let's just don't do that. And then you won't have this kind of thing happen to you. It's like, oh no, it's actually my relative. It's just, lesson learned. So yeah, so Mark, was going to the Miss Tan Line contest. I don't know why that was so funny to me. I'm like, because like I said, it's spring break. All the hotels are going to be filled with college students. So obviously they're going to have shit like, I don't know, cream corn wrestling or something. Maybe that's more a biker thing. But they're going to have beauty contests. They're going to have hot chicks and bikinis and blah, blah, blah. Thank you very much. Is that Wallcat? Okay, yeah. Sorry, I can't see that good. Thank you very much. Enjoy your channel. Appreciate the hard work. It must take a lot of time. It does, yeah. But thank you very much. Thank you very much for the super chats. Very, very nice of you. So yeah. So I just thought it was very funny that they had a very specific beauty contest that was all about tan lines. And like I said, that made me laugh because Tom's really into tan lines. Because he's always trying to get me to lay out in the sun and do it. And I'm just like, I'm a goth. I'm not laying out in the sun. Fuck that. So you know what I mean? If you really want me to, it's like just, you can draw them on there if you want. But it's like, I like my paleness. I'm not into the tan thing. But yeah. So, he did try to get me to do that for a while. But I'm not going to do that. Like I said, you can draw it on me with paint if you want. But I'm not doing it from real life.
Oh, is that another super chat?
Yes, it is.
Thank you very much.
From Wallcat.
Whalecat, thank you very much.
Enjoy your channel and appreciate the hard work.
Oh, appreciate it. Thank you very much.
I mean, I do enjoy doing these shows, though. But
we like the show. We like hanging out with you all, but we do like to make money also.
I like money.
Yeah, I like money. You like money? I can't believe that you like money.
I know.
Man, I can't believe that.
Yeah. That's like the second idiocracy thing we've made today. Because I made a Brondo joke earlier when we were in Dollar General.
Idiocracy is a masterpiece if y'all haven't seen it. Yeah.
I made a Brondo joke earlier.
Yeah, fucking...
Because you said something about some weird drink we saw in Dollar General. I said it's what plants crave.
Yeah, it's what plants crave.
Just out of
Xanada. Me and Xanada fucking talk off show a lot. Send messages. He sends a lot of movies. We review them. I'm kind of like his mentor on what fucking high quality movie to watch next. Another one I got to put you on, bro. Idiocracy. If you haven't seen it, it's fucking great.
I kind of feel like everybody's seen that.
It's hard to find that movie.
Maybe not.
Because they kind of try to suppress it.
Oh, I don't know about that. I think it's pretty easy to get.
I heard that the companies like Fuddruckers and all the people that funded it did not like that movie because they changed the name to Buttfuckers and shit like that. It was like a very...
Look, if you're naming your restaurant Fuddruckers, you can't be mad.
That's what's going to happen.
Because that's what everybody's thinking of. And you wanted everybody to think that, or you wouldn't have named it Fuddruckers in the first place. So let's not get all
the people that did
high and mighty about it.
The people that did the product placement were not happy. It didn't run long in theaters, but
it became like a cult. It got a big cult following later on. Yeah. Erica Lynn said, "Oh my god, I got to comment on this. I remember the stickers they sold at the tanning salon to get a tan line sticker. They were like Playboy bunny stickers and cherries. Yeah, you know what's funny? When I was a little kid, I had a doll that was like a Barbie doll. I can't remember what her name was though. I'll remember it in a second. But she not only had a turnable scalp, Like, she had blonde hair on one
Yeah.
side and black hair on the other side, so you could, like, turn it around and change her hair color.
Yeah.
But she had all these stickers, and you could put on her body, and then lay her out in the sun, and then she would get a tan.
Yeah.
And then
I
she would
remember
get...
that.
What the
Yeah.
fuck was the name of that thing?
Look, I want to tell you girls something. Fuck, even to this day, I know how men operate. If you had a tan and you used a sticker and you had a Playboy bunny or some fucking tacky fucking thing like that on your ass, dudes would fucking love it. The tackier that
Dudes
shit
love
is,
tacky shit.
fucking the hotter they would think you were. Yeah. Yeah.
Tom also loves tacky
I
shit.
fucking
Like,
love tacky
he'll be,
shit.
like, scrolling through Temu or something like that, like,
Fucking
looking...
tacky.
Because he buys me clothes all the time.
Yeah.
And he'll go through there and he'll be like, look at this. I'm just like, bitch, I would never wear that.
It's
Come on.
just tacky as fuck.
I'm like, that's terrible.
I just want to fuck you in it, though. I don't want you walking around in it that much.
Yeah, it's like, I'm not going outside in that.
Fucking underwear that says juicy fruit over the booty and shit.
Yeah, it
that.
looks like the gum wrapper.
Just like a gum wrapper, yeah.
Like, if you want to spend your money on that,
tacky
fine.
as shit.
But it's
I
just
fucking
like, I'm
love
not wearing that. I'm not wearing that.
Guys like tacky.
I know they do.
There's a element of fucking eroticism to it. Just like, yeah. Okay.
Y'all just all tacky motherfuckers.
Yeah.
You can't help him.
Yeah. Well, it's tacky with a sense of humor.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That's fair enough.
Yeah.
As long as you don't make me wear it outside the house.
Mm.
Or don't take a picture of me and send it to everybody you know.
Oh, I'd love to do that.
Like, yeah, I know you would.
I sent
'Cause you
pictures-
already-
I sent pictures of her to fucking murder hornet. Fucking anybody's fucking booty.
I have no idea.
Pictures.
I have no idea. Like,
You took
to
most of
whom?
the photos. You took
Well, I know
most of them.
that.
Yeah.
I know I took them.
Yeah.
But it's like, I didn't send them to anybody, but it's like, I have no idea to whom he has sent them to.
Yeah.
I know some of the people he sent them to, but he could be sending them to anybody, like random ass people, and I don't know.
Usually trading. Usually
Yeah.
trading for stuff.
Yeah,
So we're getting something out of it. It's part of our fucking porn enterprise anyway.
that's true. Yeah, as long as you don't send like terrible shitty pictures.
No,
Because sometimes you like pictures of me that I don't really like, and I would rather
Yeah,
other
guys
people didn't
kind
see.
of like certain kind of pictures that women don't tend to like. But
Yeah,
fucking,
I know.
No, a lot of pictures you took that were fucking like elegant and you look great in them. Fucking, I got that shit on my fucking tablets.
He does, yeah.
I'm at Starbucks and shit scrolling, and all my fucking background screens are fucking Jenny with fucking boobs and shit. Fucking, she looks great in them though.
I mean,
yeah.
that's pretty flattering,
Yeah.
right?
Oh yeah.
At least he's not like putting some other random chick up
No.
there. They're all
No.
of me. They're all of me.
Yeah. Well, here's one of them. She got clothes.
Yeah, I got clothes on that one.
Just shit like that.
Yeah. The
Some
other,
she doesn't have clothes.
the other one, I don't have
Yeah,
clothes. I know the other one that you're
Yeah,
talking
but I changed
about.
my. That's
I got
that's a cute Jenny picture.
I got my blue contacts in.
Yeah, that's a cute Jenny picture.
I got blue contacts. I got green contacts. I got red
Yeah.
contacts. Yeah. SideQuest Hero said, dude, Dollar General is dope. They sell Rip It.
Yeah, yeah.
When I was in the Army, Rip It was like the energy drink we got in the chow hall. And the only place they have them now is Dollar General. We have one like literally right
there.
there. Like you can walk to
I'll go
it.
down there and get a gallon of milk or buy cheese or
It's
just
so convenient.
get a fucking 2 liter. Yeah, it's convenient. A lot of candy. Get little Debbie.
We just
cakes.
went there today.
Yeah.
'Cause
We
I
go
have-
there a lot. Buy little fucking treats.
Because it's right there.
You can get Temptations for the cats.
Yeah, we get all the
Yeah,
cat
yeah,
treats
yeah.
there. I went there today because I had to get coffee creamer. I can't not
Yeah.
have coffee creamer. I ran out.
I love Dollar General.
Yeah, it's
You only
awesome.
find that in fucking food deserts out in the country.
Yeah. Out here, they're everywhere.
Yeah.
Because,
Florida's
you know,
fucking
grocery
filled with
stores are kind of like few and far. But we do have a Publix, like only a mile or so up the
Yeah.
road. But, you know what I mean? We'll go there if we want like better stuff. But,
subs.
yeah.
Fucking badass ice cream. I bought some of that cheap ass dollar store fucking ice cream in the big tub. The cookies and cream. They can't even call it ice cream. They call it frozen dessert.
Because it's
You
technically.
get a big gallon of that shit for like fucking $6. It's fucking good.
It was
though,
pretty
man.
good, yeah.
It's good. Don't be afraid of it.
It won't hurt you.
It's not ice cream because there's no cream in it. They use milk. And then to fortify the fat in there, they've used fucking vegetable oils.
Yeah.
Okay, so they legally can't call it cream.
It still tastes okay, though.
But it's still good. The only difference is that it's per cup. There's more calories in it. That's it.
But if you're already eating ice cream,
If you're already
that's
eating ice cream,
not
it's
a big
really a big
concern.
deal.
You know.
Right.
All right, so where was it? We got distracted with the Miss Tan Line competition,
Yeah.
as I knew would happen. But
Oh,
I had to mention it
I love you. With
because,
tan
like I
lines.
said,
she had tan lines one time. She looked fucking so great. I was like,
he's like I said, he's trying to get me to
get
lay
it.
out. And I'm like, I'm not laying out the
trying to
sign.
get her to sit on my face all the time.
I'll do that anyway. I don't need tan lines to do that. You know what I mean. So yeah, Miss Tan Line. So this is what happens. This is what happened.
Yeah.
But I was just thinking, I was listening to some last podcast on the left earlier, and like they kind of do that too, though. Like they talk about all this true crime and stuff like that, but then they go off on these big long tangents. And it's like super funny. No, they've been around like forever.
It's a natural thing to do.
I think maybe people thought we were copying them, but I didn't even actually start listening to them until
when you do
later.
a show like this, that naturally is going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, and especially if you're doing something
drinking.
Yeah, especially if you're drinking, and especially if you're live streaming and you have like other people interacting. You know what I mean? Yeah, I have notes and stuff like that I'm referring to over here, but you know, and I never know what he's gonna say because he doesn't usually know all the details of these, and I do. So I don't know how he's gonna react to like this shit that I say. Yeah. So that's kind of what makes it fun. So at this, so Mark Kilroy at this stage had only just turned 21. So they're all going, him and his 3 friends, they're all going on this big adventure, like down for spring break or everything like that. So they're just like, you know, hanging out at the beach, drinking, flirting with ladies, whatever. So March 13th, the night of March 13th, 1989. So this was kind of when spring break started, like for real. Like they had like 15,000 people like kind of flood into the area in Matamoros because it's like I said, it's right over the border. Like you can literally walk to it from Brownsville, Texas, like just right across the bridge. So people are just kind of flooding into the town. There's all kind of bars. It's a whole real touristy area. You know, and I don't know what it's like now, but that's what it was like back then. So Mark and so it was super crowded. Like all the bars were crowded, the streets were crowded, everything. So Mark and his buddies, they're bar hopping all night, going from one to the other. Now around 2 a.m, one of the friends says, you know, let's go back to South Padre Island in Texas where they were before. So they come out of one pub, the London pub is what it's called. They came out of there and they see Mark kind of leaning against a car and he's talking to one of the women that was in the Miss Tan Line competition because he was like trying to pick her up or whatever. And so at this point, like I said, the streets were really crowded. People are coming out of the bars because they're closing and stuff like that. So it's really packed and they're having a hard time. The 4 of them are having a hard time like staying together. You know what I mean? Like staying in a group. So at one point, 2 of the friends kind of separated from the group and they went over to this kind of like restaurant store kind of situation called Garcia's that is real close to the border. Now, Mark is kind of like stops on these steps of this house on the street to say goodbye to the Miss Tan Line lady. And then he was waiting for the other friend to come toward him. Now, the other friend comes toward him, but then he's like, man, I got to pee. So he goes into an alley to pee. And Mark said, okay, well, I'll wait out here for you. But by the time that friend, who was Huddleston, came out and found the other 2 guys who were in front of Garcia's, Mark was gone. Now, the 3 friends started looking for him, and they looked for him like pretty much all night. And then they were like, well, maybe he just went back to Brownsville because that's where their cars were. They had parked them like over in Texas and had walked over the bridge. So it's like, well, maybe he just, you know, maybe he just went back. So let's go over there and check. So they crossed the border back into Brownsville to see if he was by the car. But he wasn't there. So they hung around for a little bit, and then they're like, okay, well, we're going to go back to South Padre Island, where they had kind of started out from. And then it's like, well, maybe he picked somebody up and left the hotel with somebody. Like, maybe he met a girl or something. So they're like, okay, we're not going to worry about it too much. So they, you know, they were kind of drunk and hungover or whatever. And so they fell asleep. Now, when they woke up at the hotel the next morning, Mark was obviously still not there, and they could not contact him. This was 1989, so there were no cell phones or anything like that, obviously. So at that point, they called the cops and reported him missing. Now, the investigation at first, no one was super alarmed because, you know, they just kind of started it out as like a regular missing persons investigation because it's like this is a big spring break touristy area. There's a lot of very young people drinking a great deal. And a lot of times, most of the time, I would hazard to say, the people would turn up a day or 2 later so hungover that they didn't even know what had fucking happened. Like, they had no memory of what had happened. Like, most of them turned up fine, is what I'm getting at. As a matter of fact, Mark was actually one of 60 people who had disappeared from Matamoros only in the first 3 months of 1989. So you can see why they weren't super alarmed at first. They said most of these people are just drunk and they're wandering off and they just didn't remember what happened, and they just kind of came to someplace else and were like, how the fuck did I get here? And like eventually made their way home and everything was fine. So they didn't really think anything about it. But because Mark Kilroy was kind of slightly connected, like he had an uncle that worked in the U.S. Customs Service in L.A. And when his uncle found out about it, like, he raised a big stink. He's like, we really need to, like, figure out where this kid went, because he wouldn't just, like, wander off like that. So they did put a task force together in Brownsville, Texas, to look for him. And there were also kind of threats of, look, you know, you guys, like, Matamoros is very known for, like, American tourism and stuff, and it's like, if this gets around that, like, people are being snatched off the street or whatever, then, you know, your tourism trade might go down and blah, blah, blah. So they also tried to, it seemed like the local police were trying to maybe say, oh, well, he must have gone back to Brownsville and disappeared there. Like, so they were trying to, like, make it not their problem. You know what I mean? But his friends are like, no, he absolutely disappeared on this side of the border. Now, it seems that from the early days, like when Mark didn't turn up, they thought maybe that, you know, he had been essentially probably kidnapped and murdered, and that maybe his disappearance was drug related, or was maybe like a robbery gone wrong type of thing. But they didn't really have any leads to go on. Now, when they were trying to, you know, kind of find some clues and stuff, they did actually bring in a hypnotist to hypnotize the three friends to see if they could remember anything that would help them. Now, one of the friends, Moore, he said, under hypnosis, that he remembered that he had seen a Hispanic man, like a young guy, who was wearing a blue plaid shirt and had a scar on his face, and that he had talked to Mark before Mark's disappearance. He said that the man walked up to Mark and said, hey, don't I know you from somewhere? But he said he didn't know if, like, Mark had answered him. But nobody's entirely sure if that's exactly what happened or if that was just suggested through hypnosis. Because the friends, they didn't really know where or when exactly he had disappeared. Like I said, because the two other guys had gone off to this other kind of restaurant and were hanging out over there. And this other friend had, like, gone in an alley to pee or something like that. And he'd been talking to some chick, and it's just kind of like, I came back out of the alley and he was gone. You know what I mean? So they didn't really know, like, which direction he'd gone. So they were like, well, maybe, you know, the authorities are like, well, maybe he was kidnapped. You know, like I said, maybe he got robbed and they killed him and they just dumped him somewhere. Or maybe he was kidnapped for ransom. Although they said probably not, because, you know, nobody came forward and, like, asked for any money or anything like that. So they started doing, like, a search. They had helicopters and all this other kind of stuff. They were, like, you know, trawling the river and all this other kind of stuff. But they didn't find anything. So a little while later, like probably about 2 weeks after he disappeared, they profiled the case on America's Most Wanted, which kind of made it, like, blow up, like, across the U.S. Like, everybody saw that shit. Everybody was talking about it. And, you know, a lot of people, like, phoned in with leads and stuff, but none of them really went anywhere. Now, it so happened, the big break in the case, how they found out not only what happened to Mark Kilroy, but also exposed the entire Matamoros cult, who had been operating kind of under the radar up until this point. This is what happened. So there were some Mexican federales, and they were watching, like, a checkpoint, like a drug checkpoint. They, you know, people were smuggling or whatever, and they were all at a checkpoint. And this car ran through the checkpoint, the roadblock, like, without stopping, just breezed right through it, like it wasn't no thing. And the car was coming from Texas and then, like, went into Mexico. And the cops were like, huh, that's something. So they actually had the presence of mind to be like, you know what, we're not going to chase that dude. Like, we're not going to turn the sirens on and alert him or anything. We're just going to follow him and see where he goes, because what is this all about? He just ran through the roadblock like he's just like, whatever, you know what I mean? They thought that was kind of weird. So they're like, okay, we're going to follow him. So they followed it in an unmarked vehicle. Now, this vehicle went out to the Santa Elena Ranch, which, if you'll recall, is where the Matamoros cult, that's where they were killing people. So it went out there. So the cops followed him. They saw him go in there. And then they were like, okay, we're just going to pull off. We're going to see what happened. So they're just watching. Now, the car is there for about half an hour. And then the driver, like, leaves the ranch and goes back to the city. And then they're like, okay, well, we're going to go and search the ranch. Because evidently, I don't know about now, but evidently at this time in Mexico, you didn't need a search warrant. You could just be like, we suspect some shit's going on there, so we're just going to bust in. So they did. So they went in the ranch and started looking around. Now, while they were looking around, they found some traces of marijuana and also found some cult paraphernalia, candles and that kind of shit. Now, eventually, they found out that the person who had been driving the truck, the vehicle that had gone through the checkpoint, was none other than Serafin Hernandez Garcia, who they called Little Serafin, I believe is what, because he was like kind of a little dude. Now, he was, again, a member of the big, drug cartel Hernandez family. And that's where their operations were. Now, the cops, when they found out who he was, they knew about the Hernandez family, who, like I said, were not a huge drug cartel family, but they were kind of mid-level. He's like, we're just going to chill out, and we're just going to, see how this plays out. So they decided to, watch him. And also kind of, ask some other informants about what was going on out at that ranch. You know what I mean? So they did that for a little while. And then, a little while later, on the 9th of April, they came back with a bunch of cops and arrested him, Little Serafin, as well as his uncle, Elio, who was the head of the Hernandez cartel thing, and a couple of other cult members, 3 other cult members, and the caretaker of the ranch. Now, it turned out that the person who had driven through the roadblock, like I said, was Serafin. And the reason that he had driven through the roadblock, they discovered later, was because he thought that Adolfo Constanzo's magic was so powerful that the cops could not see him. That's why. That's why he drove through the roadblock.
Yeah.
They can't see me. Wee. And they're like,
Native Americans thought that that they could
we
become
can totally
invisible
see
to
you,
the
bro.
U.S. Army back in the day. Yeah.
But I mean, from his point of view,
thing.
From his point of view, I mean, it seemed like they did, because they did follow him, but they didn't come after him with guns blazing or sirens blaring or anything like that. They just kind of followed him at a distance because they wanted to see what he was up to. But he thought that they couldn't see him. And apparently, when they eventually arrested him, he was super shocked that they had actually been able to see him, which I thought was kind of funny. Because, like I said, the thing that that Xanada sent me, it had footage, police footage of him, of Little Serafin, at the ranch, telling them where all the bodies were buried and stuff. And he just seemed he seemed very young. I'm not really sure how young, but he seemed kind of like a kid, you know what I mean? The weird thing about it was that he also seemed like he didn't think he was going to he didn't think he was in any trouble. He wasn't cocky or anything like that, but he was just acting like everything was normal. He didn't think he was going to get in any trouble for any of this shit, which I thought was kind of bizarre. But yeah, so he was really shocked when they arrested him, because just oh my God, I didn't think you guys could see me. And, but yeah, so they arrested some of the cult members along with him. And, again, they all seemed pretty chill. Like I said, I think they all thought they were protected by magic and, nothing bad was going to happen, it seemed like. So they questioned the caretaker at the ranch. And they later determined, I don't think he knew anything about what was going on there. He was just kind of would come and go, to watch the property or whatever. But I don't think he knew. He wasn't in the cult or anything. Now, he told the cops, though, that he's they bring all these people here. They're there's all these people here from Serafin's, the Hernandez family. They come here, and it's sometimes they bring people here, and those people don't leave. And then when they showed him a picture of Mark Kilroy, he's yeah, I saw him. And then he said he was over there. They took him over there to the shack. So then the cops go back and question Little Serafin. And he just casual as you please, he's there have been a bunch of people killed out here. They're the documentary that Xanada sent me, that was an interview with one of the Brownsville cops that had investigated the case. He said, we took the little dude out to the ranch, and they have footage of this, and said, because they were looking for Mark Kilroy, right? They didn't know at this point that there were a bunch of other bodies out there. And so they were okay, well, where's the body? And he says to them, which one? He said it was nothing.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Which one are you talking? Which one?
Damn.
And he's what do you mean, which one?
There's a shit ton of them.
And he's yeah, there's a bunch of them.
Damn.
It was it was like that. And the dude, the cop that was on there was just flabbergasted. Like, you could tell. He's like, it's just the casual way that he went about it. So, like, which one? And then he just, like I said, I don't think the dude thought that he was going to get in any trouble. I think was what it was. He thought he was protected. So he's like, yeah, there's all kind of people. There's a dude over there, and there's a dude over there, and there's a dude over there. And he's like, yeah, it was Il Padrino, Adolfo Constanzo, that's what they called him, the Godfather. And he's like, yeah, he killed all kind of people out here. It's protection. They're sacrificing people like for protection for all the drug cartels. And then he later told them, it's like, yeah, and he specifically asked us to find a gringo to sacrifice. And that's where Mark is buried, over there. And then he told them, now, some sources I read, some said that he just confessed willingly, like the cop on the documentary when they interviewed him. He said that he's like, I never, because he'd acknowledged that the Mexican police at that time, I don't know about nowadays, but at that time, they didn't have any compunction about torturing people to get information out of them. What did they call it? Moral pressure. He said that's what they called it. Moral pressure. But it was torture. But he said, according to him, he said they didn't have to torture little Seraphine. He just told him shit like whatever. But other sources I read said that he was tortured. So I don't know which thing is true. Regardless of which thing is true, Seraphine said, this is what happened. He said, yeah, it was me and a few other members of the cult. And we had been told to find a gringo. So we went down to Matamoros because we knew all the spring breakers were going to be there. So we were down there on, overnight of 13th, 14th March. They said they saw Mark Kilroy. Some sources said that they had been following him and, because he's kind of a big blonde, classic American looking dude, I guess. And that they had followed him around the bars and had heard him talking about being a med student. I find that hard to believe, but that could be the case. So they saw him standing on the street, like near his buddies. And apparently one of the cult people, like, lured him close to one of their vehicles. Now, again, there's kind of different things. A couple different sources I read said that they maybe, because sometimes the cult members, they had police uniforms. And badges and stuff. So sometimes they would wear those and pretend to be cops, right? So, and they had friends that were cops. So sometimes a real cop would like be along with them when they were doing illegal shit. So, because they had friends that were cops. So I don't know if that was the case here, but some sources said that it was, that they had police uniforms on, like jackets that said, Polizia on the back or whatever. And they had, and everything. So Mark Kilroy might have thought that they were cops. So they got him to come up to the vehicle. Other sources said that maybe they just asked him if he wanted a ride or something like that, and he came over to talk to them. And at that point, Little Seraphine and one other guy, whose name was, they just called him like Ponce Torres, they grabbed him apparently and kind of got him inside the truck. Now, there was a point where they kind of slowed down the truck, and Mark apparently jumped out and like ran. But one of the cult members yelled freeze at him, and he did. I guess because he thought the dudes were cops, or he was just used to doing what cops said, or it was just, he was pretty drunk, so maybe he just did it automatically. But regardless, he did stop running, and there were actually two vehicles, one behind the other one, like, one was backup in case something went wrong. So the other vehicle, they basically like muscled him inside the car at gunpoint, and then handcuffed him, like kind of knocked him upside the head so he was kind of unconscious. So put him in the back of the second car. So they drove kind of all around the back streets and stuff, and then they took him out to the ranch. Now, they left him in the car overnight. Now, right before sunrise, the caretaker guy kind of felt bad for him and went out there to give him something to eat. Like, he gave him some eggs and some water and stuff. Now, they kind of kept him around the ranch for about 12 hours. But then Constanzo and his other cult members came to see him and were like, yeah, this is a good one. This is like a good one you got. So they wrapped his eyes up with duct tape, and then they had his hands like handcuffed behind his back, and they walked him to the shack or the cabin or whatever. And then they kept him in there all night, Constanzo raping him multiple times.
Damn.
And torturing him, cutting off body parts and whatnot.
What they cut off of him?
I'm not really sure like what it was, but that's what they always did. So they did that, and then for like 12 hours, and then they led him out to this field, and then Adolfo basically he didn't decapitate him, because I saw a picture of the body when they dug it up. His head was still attached, it looked like. But they basically chopped him on the back of the neck and killed him with a machete. And then they chopped the top of his head so they could take his brain out. And then they put the brain in the anganga. And then before they buried him, they cut his legs off at the knees. But later on, little Seraphine said, well, that didn't have anything to do with the ritual. We just did that so it'd be easier to bury him. But I don't know what they did with the legs. They probably put those in the pot too, I'd imagine. Also, and remember how I said earlier, how a lot of the cult members that had killed people, they would have they had necklaces that were made out of backbones?
Yeah.
So what they would do was they would take a coat hanger that was all stretched out. They would, after the person was dead, they would put the coat hanger through the spinal column, and then they would leave an end of it sticking out of the grave, so that they would wait a while after the body was decomposed. They would come back and pull on it so they could get the shit out easier. That was the story. Yeah. And then you could make a necklace out of it. And apparently little Seraphine was so jealous that some of the other cult members had spine necklaces and he didn't have one.
Fuck.
And he was just, like I said, he just admitted that. He's yeah, man, they were so cool. I didn't have one. That was a real bummer. And I'm just holy shit, this is so fucked up. But yeah, so, and as a matter of fact, when they took little Seraphine out there to show the cops where all the bodies were, they asked him, well, where's Mark Kilroy? And he said, right over there. It's that's where the wire is sticking out. And there was a pic, because like I said, on the documentary I saw, they had the thing, and there was a little piece of coat hanger, sticking out of the thing, so you can pull the spine out. They thought of everything. I'm just that is one of the most fucking messed up things I've ever heard. It's awful. It's awful. So yeah. So they found his body. They also found a whole bunch of other ones. 15 other ones, to be precise. As far as I know, they identified most of the people that they found buried out at the ranch, but I believe 3 of them are still unidentified. These are just people that they picked up and killed. So there was that. Now, yeah, so what they did was, the cops, after they found out that all these bodies were buried out there, they basically made the cult members that they had arrested, that they had captured, they took them all out there at gunpoint and, made them dig all the bodies up. So there was that. So they found 15 bodies, all of which were mutilated. All of them were men. They had all been killed over a 9-month period. They were able to identify Mark Kilroy because of his dental records. They did find a jawbone. And like I said, most of the other people were identified, but 3 of them were not. As far as I know, those people have still not been identified. Among the bodies, I believe, was the victim that was killed after Kilroy. Now, I thought this was kind of interesting, too. In light of Sara Aldrete, the kind of second in command. Now, she had been dating a dude before she got together with Constanzo, who, by the way, picked her up by... What the story I heard was that he essentially ran her car off the road, or was trying to make her pull over, and she wouldn't. And then finally he blocked her way, so she had to pull over. And then he very aggressively was you have to go out with me because I just wanted to talk to you and yada yada. And most 99% of women in the world to be please fuck off, I'm calling the police because you're obviously deranged. But she kind of at first was reluctant, but was oh, okay, I guess you're all right. Yeah, well, how'd that go? So yeah. But she had been dating a couple dudes just casually, before she hooked up with Alfonso, right? Because she's just a normal, pretty girl. So she had a couple different dudes going. One of those dudes was named Gilberto Sosa. Now, right around 1989, it seems, after Mark Kilroy was killed, Adolfo found out that Sara was talking to Gilberto again, right? And he didn't like that shit, not one bit. Even though, like I said, he seemed more into, as far as being in love with his male lovers, of which he had two. One of which he called like, "You're my man," and the other one was "You're my woman." I can't remember which one was which. But he had a whole thing, like he had a trio thing going, like a throuple with the two guys. But Sara was in the mix too, and she seemed okay with it. I'm not really sure how that was going. But so he found out, though, that she had been talking to this ex-boyfriend of hers, and he got mad about it. He's like, okay, well, he's going to be the next one. We're going to kill him next. Now, evidently, like after Mark Kilroy, evidently Sara, not too upset about this, was just kind of like, okay, I guess that's how that shit goes. All right. So I don't think she participated, but I think she was there. Like, I think she watched it happen. And they did kind of a similar thing. They basically, like, tied him up. Adolfo cut off his toes first, and he didn't put him in the pot, though. He kept him in his pocket, like his souvenirs. And then he raped the guy, tortured him, tried to, cut off various parts, took some skin off, shit like that, and then he killed him. And
Who
then
was this dude again?
Which one?
The dude that he's killing right now.
The dude that was Sarah's ex-boyfriend from long before she was in the cult.
Okay. He's a Mexican? Or an
Yeah,
American?
everybody was a Mexican except
dude.
for Mark Kilroy, as far as I'm aware.
Motherfucker's dastardly, man.
That's the word. That's the word.
Damn.
Oh, and then after they killed Gilberto, they all went out for burgers and fries, which was apparently something that they did every single time they sacrificed somebody. That was like their little ritual. Hey, we're going to go out for burgers and fries.
And they chill out. And
we're going to Five Guys or whatever.
They go back to
back
normalcy
then.
and shit. Yeah.
Yeah, but that was their favorite thing. That was like their ritual after they would go get burgers and fries. One of the things that cracked me up was that one of the places, I don't remember, this was on one of the documentaries I watched, and it was just a detail that struck me as funny, was that Adolfo Constanzo, he would always meet people at this place called VIPs, which was, I guess he thought it was fancy because it was American owned, or it was like an American style diner, but the documentary person was like, it's basically like a Denny's, but he thought it was like super classy, so he would always like meet people there, which I thought
that one might have been a move up for what he was
which
doing.
I always thought was very funny.
Well, it depends on where this is happening. That might have been the best thing in town.
Maybe so. Yeah, Xana said, wasn't Kilroy the son of a state senator too? I don't know if he was. I think like the main connection that he had was that his uncle was in like a big up in the customs thing. I think that's what it was. So that's why and plus he was an American and he disappeared in Mexico, and so that's everybody like wanted, and he's like kind of a golden boy type thing. So that's always gonna like play well in the media, which terrible to say. Which, like I said, that's kind of why whenever like a pretty blonde white woman gets kidnapped or murdered or something like that, you're gonna hear way more about that than if the victim was a prostitute or a drug user or black or something. I mean, it's better than it was, but that still happens. So yes, they go out for burgers and fries. I think there was one more murder after that one, who was like a guy that they thought had like betrayed them. He might have been a cop, like a corrupt cop. I can't remember, but there was like another guy that they killed after that, after they killed Sarah's ex-boyfriend. So when the Mexican police raided the ranch, they, other than all the bodies, which that's bad enough, but they also found 243 pounds of marijuana, 108 grams of cocaine, 12 firearms, including 3 submachine guns, and 11 vehicles which had phones in them, which was a big deal for 1989, obviously. They also found the anganga, the iron pot. Inside of that, they found a brain, a human brain, which obviously was Mark Kilroy's brain. They also found a goat head, a bunch of chicken feet. There was a roasted turtle in there, some herbs, a horseshoe, and some coins, and a bunch of animal blood. I love that one of the things that I read said, they found no signs of cannibalism. Like, that makes shit better. They did all this kind of stuff. It's like, well, at least they didn't eat anybody. I'm like, okay. All right. Now, according to the guy in the documentary, one of the Brownsville investigators that was interviewed in the thing that Xanada sent me, They said, he said they found 23 bodies in the Matamoros area. But I wasn't clear if this included the 15 bodies found at the ranch, because the Santa Elena Ranch, at least from my understanding, is about 20 miles outside of Matamoros. So I don't know if he was talking about those 15 bodies and then like an additional 8, or if he's saying they found 23 additional bodies in Matamoros that they that they think was related to the cult, but like not exactly. They also found a further 40 bodies around Mexico City that kind of had the hallmarks of the cult sacrifices. As I said, I don't think these were ever definitively linked to this particular cult, but it looked like the same deal. You know what I'm saying? So that's why they're saying, you know, there's 15, 16 that are confirmed, but then there's all these other ones that they're pretty sure were the same people, but they can't really prove it. You know what I'm saying? Now, on the same day that they were exhuming all the bodies at Santa Elena, the ranch, Adolfo took the fuck off. And they later found out that he had gone to a Holiday Inn in Texas, in Brownsville, and then to McAllen, Texas, and then he came back to Mexico City. He had an apartment there. Now, it wasn't just him. He actually escaped with Sara Aldrete, and 3 more of his cult members. That'd be Martin Rodriguez, Omar Orea Ochoa, and Alvaro de Leon Valdez, who's otherwise known as El Doobie. They all had nicknames, by the way. One of them was the cat. One of them was the butterfly. You know, they all had names. This one was called El Doobie. I don't know what the fuck that means, but that's what he was called. So I'm saying that the fact that as soon as they dug the bodies up at the ranch and he knew he was fucked, he got the fuck out of there. So I was like, well, obviously you don't believe that you're magically protected from the cops, because otherwise you'd just sit there and be like, hey, they can't get me. I magicked the shit. So obviously he didn't really believe that, because as soon as he heard about it, he's like, let's go. We're out of here. So he fucking took off. So they started, like, basically the U.S. and Mexican authorities, like, kind of, you know, got together and did, like, this whole big manhunt looking for the Constanzo and all the rest of the fucking people. So they did a bunch of raids. They arrested a bunch of the cult members, all this other kind of stuff. But for a while, they couldn't find those 5. They couldn't find Constanzo and the 4 that had escaped to them. One thing they did, the Mexico City police, I think later there was some kind of, I don't know if I'd go so far as to say bad blood, but I think there were some kind of like little conflicts between like the Mexican and U.S. authorities, because I think the Mexican authorities thought that the U.S. authorities had made it look like in the media that they had solved the shit, when really it was kind of more the Mexican authorities that did that. Because in the interim, because for a long time the cult had connections in the Mexican police, like, because a lot of them were corrupt. But by the time of the Mark Kilroy murder, by the time they were caught, another guy had come in and he was getting rid of like all the corrupt cops. He was really cracking down on it. So that was another thing too. So it might have been just like a matter of time. But the dude that came in, his name was Juan something. I can't remember what it was, but he was really cracking down on corruption in the police force, and he knew that they were in with the cartels, and so he was really head up to like catch these people. So there was that too. So they started investigating. They're like, okay, well, there were all these other cult-style weird murders that took place in Mexico City, like between 1987 and 1989, and like I said, they're pretty sure that was the same people. So they're like, well, because these are occult practices, they started going through Mexico City, talking to informants, and they were talking to like people that knew about witchcraft and shit like that. They wanted to get into the witchcraft community and see what everybody knew. So by kind of talking to people there, they heard that Adolfo was probably hiding out in a place called how do you pronounce it? I looked it up. Cuauhtemoc, I think is how you pronounce it. I try to write it down because I've listened to somebody talk to say it, you know what I mean? So I wouldn't get it wrong, which was kind of like the outside of the city, right? And they're like, yeah, so there's this apartment building, and we heard rumors that he was there. So the cops send all of these officers out to kind of look around. Now, they go in a grocery store, and they found this dude that was in the grocery store and said, hey, I saw this really tall woman. Because remember, Sara Aldrete was like, pretty tall for a woman. She was like 6'1", 6'2", something like that. So it was like, saw a woman that matched her description. And then when the cops were at the supermarket, like talking to this guy that had seen this really tall woman, they found this person who was buying a whole bunch of groceries with with an American, like a US $100 bill. So they thought that was really suspicious. So they followed this guy. And it turned out that this guy was staying in an apartment right near there. And they said this guy is one of the dudes, De Leon, I think, one of the guys that escaped with Constanzo. And he was like buying groceries for him. That's what they thought. Also around this time, I'm not really sure if the Mexican authorities did this or if this was somebody else that did this. But one of the things they wanted to do to freak Constanzo out was that when they had raided the ranch, Santa Elena, and they found his anganga, and they knew how superstitious like the cult members were. So they're like, we are going to burn his cauldron and we're going to put it on TV. So they hoped that he saw it, like to kind of freak him out, like psychological warfare. So I don't know if the cops did that or if somebody else did that, but they did that, like, because I saw the footage of it. And apparently he did see it, and it did like freak him out, so it worked. So they figured out that they were all hiding out at this apartment. So in early May of 1989, the cops surrounded the building. And then, traffic's going by, so they kind of waited till the street was empty, and then they were going to raid the place. But then this suspicious black vehicle pulls up in front of the complex, and the cops are like, who the fuck is this? And they walked over to see who it was, and Adolfo, meanwhile, was in the apartment, was looking out the window, and he saw the cops, so he opened fire at them. Thankfully, only one of the cops got just winged in the arm, like he was fine. And I think like just one bystander got hit, but again, they survived. So nobody got killed none of the good guys, I guess, got killed. But yeah. So he just like opened fire. And then as a distraction, he started like throwing money and shit like that out of the windows. Like, because people were coming by and they're like, ooh, money, you know what I mean? So there was that. Now, Adolfo eventually just kept shooting, and then he ran out of ammunition. And then he was just getting pissed off because I guess he knew he was caught. So this whole shootout went on for about 45 minutes. And he I guess, didn't want to be taken alive. So he says to De Leon, I want you to kill me and Rodriguez, who was kind of his main dude, like his main boyfriend, right? And De Leon was like, man, I don't want to do that. You're the Godfather. You know what I mean? I can't kill you. But he's like, no, you have to do it. He's like, if you don't, I'm going to like fucking, you're going to be my slave in hell or something like that. Like I said, they believed all this stuff. So apparently, De Leon, they put him and Rodriguez in like a closet little room or something. And he just shot him. So both of them died. So yeah, he told him to kill him. And he just opened with a machine gun. So the cops come in and they get in the apartment. And at this point, Sara runs out, screaming her head off, acting like she's been kidnapped and, oh my God, I'm free, and all this other kind of stuff. Which, like I said, I kind of think all of that was bullshit, but we'll get into that in a minute. So they come in, they arrested everybody that was left. Now, for a while, they weren't sure if Adolfo had maybe faked his death somehow, so they had to do like fingerprints and everything like that. But that actually was him. Like two of the guys, he did actually die. Everybody else basically said that they were all innocent. Like, we didn't even do. And Sara in particular was like, no, I was forced into this shit. I didn't even like know what they were doing. I was just starting with my initiation. They were holding me prisoner and making me do this and blah blah blah. So everybody that was left in the apartment, other than the two dead guys, they all got brought into custody, including some other cultists that they tracked down later, that were in the city, but they found them later on. They were living in another apartment building that the Constanzo owned. Now, so they all got arrested and brought up on various charges. They ended up charging 14 people. And most of them, they got, like, murder was, like, obviously a big one. But some of them were just, like, on drug running charges, obstructing justice, things like that. So the kind of three big ones, like Sara Aldrete, Elio Hernandez, who was kind of the head of the cult, and Lil Serafine, they got convicted of several murders each, and got sentences of 67 years each, I believe. De Leon, the one that had shot Constanzo and Rodriguez, he got 30 years. Now, all of these people, if they are ever released in Mexico, if they ever come to the United States, then they will also be charged in the United States. So I don't think they're going anywhere. Because the thing about it was that in 1998, their sentences, not Sarah's sentence, but the other two guys, some of the other cult members, their sentences were reduced, but they were just reduced like to 50 years. So they're probably still going to die in prison. And like I said, if they ever get out and come to the U.S., then there's warrants out for them too, so they will get charged here also. Now, as I mentioned, Sarah came out and talked to the press in 2003 and said that she had nothing to do with any of the killings. That she was like, well, Constanzo is dead, and it's like, you can't possibly know what happened. You know, and she thought, and some people maybe still think this, and there might be some truth to this, I'm not entirely sure, but some people believed that because of Constanzo's connection with, you know, kind of higher up politicians and cops and stuff like that, that maybe they rubbed him out, because her story is that he didn't have his lackey kill him. Her story was that the cops came in and killed him.
Want me to freshen that up?
Yeah.
Okay.
And she argued that because he knew so much about so many powerful people that they maybe had him killed. That's her story. But like I said, I don't really know if that's true. She even wrote an autobiography, again in the early 2000s, and she kind of told her side of the story, in which, of course, she made herself seem like blameless. She basically said that she was taken hostage by him, that she was afraid of him, you know, and that he made her do stuff, but that she didn't even really know that much about the killings, and that she wasn't there when it happened, and all this other kind of stuff. And then she also said that after she got arrested, that she was mistreated by the police, that she was raped and tortured and all this stuff, which, you know, that might not be untrue. I'm not entirely sure. But I'm saying that, like, a lot of stuff that she's saying was probably bullshit. Because according to everybody else, like, even all the other cult members and stuff that they got to talk about it, that Sara Aldrete was absolutely a willing participant. I don't think any of them said that she actually did any of the killings herself, but all the shit she's saying about her being forced into it, or, you know, that she didn't know anything about it, was bullshit. Because they said for some of the stuff, she didn't actually, like, swing the machete or anything, but they said some of them she was absolutely there, and that she seemed like just as into it as all of them were. So I don't know, you know, how that would go. But yeah, so she is, again, still in prison. They all still are. As far as I know, only 2 of the cult members that they're aware of are still at large. Ovidio Hernandez and Ponce Torres, they're still wanted for Mark Kilroy's murder, among many other charges. And as far as I know, those are the only 2 that are still at large. They think they caught everyone else, even though some of the other cult members said, oh, there's lots of us out there, which may entirely be true. I'm not really sure. Because like I said, this isn't... even though this is obviously very extreme, but there are a lot of people who practice this religion, you know. But, you know, obviously all of them aren't going to do shit like this, because this was way beyond the pale. Way beyond the pale. So, you know.
Man.
I mean, wearing
2 of them are
spines...
still out there.
Yeah.
They got to be in
As
Mexico.
far as I know.
Got to be in Mexico.
I mean, they might
still.
be dead by now. Well, like I
How
said...
old would they be by now, you think?
I think they were all fairly young when this was going on, but this was like the late 80s, and they're probably all in their 20s. So
they'd be in their 60s.
Yeah, they'd be older than us.
They could still be alive.
But they could still be alive. But like I said, considering the line of work that they were in,
Yeah.
I'd be surprised if they were still alive, but it's possible.
It's Mexico.
Yeah.
It's probably a lot easier to vanish in Mexico than it is the United States. It's not quite as electronic. Well, they are now. But these motherfuckers might be just in the underground. You know, they might not even have bank accounts. You know.
Well, hi.
So I grabbed the cat's tail and she goes, where are you going? Don't go anywhere. You're going to come on the show.
She's like,
Come on the show, Pokey.
look at
Yeah.
Pookie. We've only had Bam on the show a couple of times.
Yeah, she was laying out here.
She was there for a while,
Yeah.
like sleep, but she was like, when you guys start talking to the lights, I'm just out of here.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go sit and look out
so
the
what
window.
did the comments say? Anything?
I'm looking at your.
No, I was talking to SideQuest here.
Yeah.
That's my fucking veteran buddy. She's an Intel veteran and working in fucking supply and support and everything. And we're just talking about Army fucking business. She's my sister. I understand. We agree on a lot of shit. Fucking relationships don't fucking belong in the military situation. We're talking about like the best roles for females in a military situation. Intel and supply, yeah. But like, you go through history, you're going to find that the special forces of female is sex operative. Those girls are real heroes. They're having sex with dudes that they don't even fucking like to get information to fucking save lives on their side. Poor girls.
I mean, better them than me. I wouldn't be able to do that.
Yeah, those are the commandos.
You have to be a good fucking actor.
Yeah, you gotta be an actress.
And I'm not really good at that.
An actress and a porn star and everything to fucking convince these assholes that you like them.
Yeah, I'm not.
To get information. That's all the James Bond shit's all bullshit. No, James Bond would be a female. Fucking.
Well, because people don't suspect him as much.
Evidently in the books, I haven't read all the books, but evidently fucking in the books, James Bond was partially a sex operative.
I'm gonna have to look that up because that'd be really interesting.
Well, yeah, see if that.
It would make sense.
Yeah,
I mean, it would make sense. That's
because just like in the movie The Jackal,
angle.
Just like in the movie The Jackal with fucking Bruce Willis, he made a move on the gay guy to get his ID.
Well, yeah, like I said, it would be useful.
Right. Any kind of attack was fucking
because your whole job
you're trying to get somewhere
is getting information.
Right, yeah.
And you got to do that whatever way you got to do that without getting your ass killed. And if you got to go at it from a sexual angle, then that's what you got to do because a lot of people aren't expecting it.
Jackal Willis went at it at a sexual angle. I think he killed that guy though too. You know, he was a fucking psycho, but he got his ID. Yeah.
Yeah, I just saw what you said. You can handle when your bro dies. When your lover dies, it's much worse.
Yeah. I don't think there should. It's you got to keep the infantry a fucking single sex organization, and you know, part of the reason why they didn't approve of homosexuality and homosexuals being in the infantry back when I was there, or even in the army, because they were afraid of relationships. You know what I mean? Everybody has to be equally expendable because some of the orders you have to issue will result in the deaths of other people. Well, what if your fucking boyfriend is in that group? You guys see what I mean? You say, well, I'm not going to send that one. I'm going to send the other group. No, everybody has to be equally expendable.
It's more of a thing of like favoritism, I guess, more than, or along those lines.
You can't be any favoritism. It has to be stone cold indifference. That's what actually works in the military. There isn't any of the human emotions that civilians have. There are too many lives at stake. You know? Somebody has to die.
Yeah.
You know, that's in the fucking infantry. And also armor. Armor was like that too. And fucking combat aviation, similar.
Yeah, and I feel like, I don't know if this is the case across the board, but I do kind of feel like men have a harder time dealing with the death of a loved one, maybe, than women do. Do you think that's the case? Maybe just because men are not encouraged to like showcase their emotions or deal with their emotions.
There's some evolutionary psychology. Whenever you talk about that, you're gonna have all these people fucking jumping up and trying.
Well, no, I'm just wondering like what you think.
I think fucking based on what I've seen, women have a tendency to attach themselves slowly to men, but they can detach quickly. In other words, it's hard to get a girlfriend, but she'll break up with you very quickly. So you're like, well, how did that happen? Well, when you look at females, not only human females, but animal females, usually what ends up happening in a fucking something like a lion pride or a wolf pack, or mostly like a lion pride, or even in a primate group, the females are the main characters in the group. The males kind of come and go. Some new males can chase the old males away and take
So you can't get too attached because that
yeah.
one might not be around.
Exactly. So you have a situation with humans is you're in a farming community. You have a man, maybe even a child by him. Some other men come, kick those dudes' asses. They kill your husband, grab you. They even kill the child, because that's really what lions do. They fucking...
Yeah, lions
and
do.
even primates do that. They kill all the children.
We're starting over.
They're starting over. And the women have a tendency towards Stockholm syndrome.
Or just like survival, where it's
Survival
like, well, I
things.
better, like, they're going to kill
So,
my
like,
ass
you
if
know
I don't
what?
go along with this bullshit.
The old guy that was here was too weak to defend me. He failed. These other guys, these new guys, they're kind of hot. They came in, fucking kicked ass on these other dudes. You know, he's a winner. The other dudes were losers. This is the new guy. You know what? He's all right. He's being nice to me, and he's protecting me, and this one will protect, so that shit will never happen again. That's I think, was the female mindset, even outside of humans. You know what I mean? Other species of the females are like that too. People think that there's a division between animals and humans. There isn't. Humans are animals. There's just other species.
Yeah, we're not.
All those other
outside of
species,
that.
they act real similar to us.
I mean, we have some
So-
different shit going on because of our
Yeah.
brains, but it's not really as
Not
different.
that
It's
much
not
different.
That different.
So
We are more complex.
women tend to like guys who are sexy. When they think sexy, they think he's competent, he's strong, he makes me feel safe, he can provide, he's bringing meat, he's bringing money. They tend to like that. That way, other dudes don't come and take your shit and disturb your life. But when that does happen, that's a stronger man, so that might be a better deal. And if you're back in these days, fucking in the
You didn't
fucking,
really. It's not like you had a lot of options.
you didn't have a
back
lot of
then.
options. But back in the caveman days, this was happening when you were still in your teens and your man was maybe in his 20s or his 30s. They didn't live that long. So what that meant is that everybody was kind of hot back then. They weren't old fucking dudes fucking from a post-industrial civilization with fucking huge guts and shit. You know, these were all people in their fucking animal form, you know, kind of, they were physically fit. All of them were. You couldn't be physically unfit. Although they did have old people, and they took care of old people that was already back.
They weren't that big of assholes.
No.
They were just kind of like, die, old dude.
Yeah, no.
Like in Midsommar.
Yeah.
Jump off a cliff.
They found Neanderthals who are not human, but related to us, that were old. They didn't have any teeth or anything, and they lived a long time. Which
Yeah,
meant
people
that
took care
were
of
taking
them.
care of
Yeah.
them. Because you
So-
took care of your parents.
Right. I mean,
And old people had something.
Well, that's kind of why. I mean, some animals do that too.
Yeah.
Will take care of a member of the group that is not able to. Like elephants will do that and stuff like that. So it's not just a human thing, but that's kind of how they know. Like this is when humans like got their humanity, when they started taking care of people, when they started doing things that they knew wouldn't reward them necessarily. We're taking care of a person because that's a person.
Well, they're saying they didn't reward them, but it probably did. Because you have to look at the situation. They were illiterate. They didn't have books. But you had old people. And old people had memories. They could tell you things. They could tell you stories. You know what I mean?
Well, and they knew shit.
They knew shit from the past. So they were kind of... Old people were your...
a resource.
Your resource to tell you what you should do. And so they were probably doing...
But they still had, I mean, I imagine...
They had a connection with them.
Yeah, they still had a connection with them because that's like your parent or your,
Mm-hmm.
your husband or whatever. It's like they felt
Your grandfather.
emotions like we feel.
Yeah.
Like you love that person.
Right.
So it's just kind of like, so that's another reason to like take care of them, like keep them alive as long as possible. Erica Lynn said, I agree, Jenny. I think women expect the husband to die first. Women usually live longer, but maybe men lose themselves when they lose the mate first.
Yeah.
I had noticed that. Like I said, I don't think it's true across the board because everybody's different, but I had noticed that women, I mean, obviously they grieve and they feel horrible like when their mate dies or something like that, but I think they spring back from it quicker. But that's just a generalization.
Side quest is she's a female veteran is fucking saying some shit. What'd she say? I couldn't read it all. She's given her...
Yeah, humans are just more self-aware, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a scientist who said the first sign of civilization is a healed bone.
Yeah.
Yeah, because somebody had to take care of that person.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. That's actually a good marker.
Yeah.
Because like I said, that's not... I mean, yes, it benefits the community as a whole, because it's like, if that person is a hunter, you know, for example, and they broke their leg, and now they can't hunt, well, it's like, obviously, if we take care of that person, they'll get better quicker, and then they can get back out and help us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
All those proto-humans, I'm not sure Australopithecus, but they were probably okay, but Homo erectus, fucking Homo habilis, Neanderthal, all those, they were humans, they just weren't as advanced as us, because all you gotta do is look at animals, cats and shit. They do a lot of things that are human-like.
Well, our cats definitely do.
They're just not quite as good at it. Their memories aren't quite as good, and so.
But they're just I consider
they're very childlike.
Yeah, I just consider them kind of like human children, because they come across, like our cats come across just kind of like a toddler, or maybe like a little bit older than a toddler.
A little bit older. They have empathy. They know, but they can't really stick to anything because their memories and their consciousness. But you know, I'm sure even Homo erectus, they probably had human behaviors and human responses to things. They could stick to it a little bit more. Yeah. They're like, no, dude, his arm is hurt. Let his arm heal up. He'll be okay. You know, so they were probably at that level.
Yeah, because like I said, even nowadays, like domesticated animals, dogs, cats, stuff like that, can obviously feel empathy for humans. They have some kind of human emotions. Our cats, they can deceive. Yeah. They know what you're feeling. Like they know if somebody's upset or something like that. They seem to like respond to that.
I seen a video of a girl pretending that she was crying. Her dog was concerned. Yeah. Beside her.
And a lot of people. Yeah.
So you know. So yeah, they have empathy. They know when something's wrong and they try to help you.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't think it's that crazy that, like, you know, we're not, you know, our brains are more complicated or whatever, but I don't think there's, like, as huge of a difference. But that said, getting back a little bit to, because this is interesting because next week's show is going to be on Valentine's Day. And traditionally, we had always done, like, a killer couples show on Valentine's Day. I know it's fucked up, but, you know how I do. But I have the poll. That'll be up on Friday. And I have a couple killer couple kind of shows in there, but I also have some other Valentine romance adjacent kind of stuff, like Kurt Cobain and Courtney Love. I think I have that in there, like stuff like that. It's stuff that I thought was like appropriate for like a Valentine's Day show, but coming at it from a fucked up perspective, like I do. However, I kind of feel like a little bit this situation, Adolfo Constanzo, this is a little bit of a killer couple situation. I'm not saying that he wouldn't have done the shit without her, because he absolutely would have. But I'm always kind of curious about that dynamic. And I'm curious how involved she was in all of this shit. Like, did she watch the shit happen? Was she into it? And it fascinates me that by all accounts, you know, Sara Aldrete was a normal person, seemingly. This is why I don't trust normal people. But yeah, she was a college student. She was straight A's. She was a cheerleader, all this other kind of stuff. Like everything you'd think of as just kind of like all-American kind of thing. I mean, she was Mexican, but she went to school and college in the United States. But it kind of fascinates me that somebody like that could have this dark side of them that was probably like the darkest side that you could ever actually have. Hey, on this side of the border, I'm a straight A student and a cheerleader and like everybody loves me, but then on this other side of the border, I'm involved with the drug cartel, who is, by the way, also tearing out people's spines and wearing them as necklaces. I mean, that seems a little crazy. And I'm kind of fascinated more. I'm fascinated by male serial killers also, like by their pathology and stuff, but I'm kind of really interested in couple serial killers, which this kind of qualifies. You know what I mean?
Kind of, yeah.
Even though, like I said, he would have done the shit without her, but I think it's kind of like interesting, the dynamic. I'm interested in how women get sucked into this, because it's not common. There are female serial killers, obviously. You know, you got Aileen Wuornos, you got Belle Gunnis, like people like that. There are women that are fucked up, but it's not common. And I'm always kind of interested in how that dynamic occurs. And I think that, particularly in this case, because she seemed so normal to most people, and they didn't know anything about this other life she was living.
The weirdest thing about the couple serial killers is that the victims who have survived said that the woman was worse than the man. That's another thing.
Which is always, that's fascinating to me.
Whoa.
And I said, I wonder if that's because, and maybe I'm talking out my ass. I'm not a psychiatrist or anything like that. But I always kind of wonder if that's maybe a product of women being more likely to be people pleasers.
Trying to make him happy.
Right. So I kind of feel like they get involved with this dude and they love him, and it's this whole, a little bit of a Stockholm syndrome kind of situation maybe. And the longer she's with him, the more normalized the shit becomes. And there comes a point where she's just trying to make him happy, so she's trying to do more fucked up shit than he's doing
to impress him. And also,
I think that might be what's going on.
And then maybe to secure her safety.
That too. Like, look, I'm crazier than you are. Yeah. Don't kill me.
Right.
It might be that too.
It might be that. Yeah.
Because I'm sure, because there has to be, at some level, that woman has to know this dude could snap at any moment and do the same shit to me. I mean, they have to know that, even if not consciously. So maybe that's why they're doing that. Because it's like, look, I'm your partner in crime. I'm crazier than you are. Yeah. I'm also doing all of this stuff and worse.
And it's kind of like a kind of an overwhelming feeling. What's the word? Like an overload of emotions.
Right.
Negative and positive emotions. Fear, dread, hatred, love, everything all happening at once.
Yeah.
So they must be like extremely overstimulated.
Oh, I'm sure.
Must have kind of a euphoric quality to it, maybe. For a while. I would think that it would wear off. Everything kind of does.
That's the thing. It's like, like I said, I'm not a psychiatrist. My only experience is actually being a woman and knowing what our mindsets are. I don't understand, like, I've never understood, like, women that write to serial killers and, like, or, like, fangirling over serial killers, because that's fucked up. I'm fascinated by them, but I'm not attracted to them. I think they're vile. But I think the reason I'm fascinated by them is because they're vile and because their thought processes are so different than mine. That's what I find fascinating. I don't find them alluring in that way.
Yeah.
But some women do. So I can kind of see where that switch might happen, even though I don't have that personally. But intellectually, I can kind of see how it could happen. Like, remember when we did the show, and this was a while back, like on one of our killer couple, we did a killer couple show for Valentine's Day, and it was British couples. So we talked about Brady and Hindley, who I've always been fascinated with. I've read like a ton of books about them because that's always interested me. He was obviously a psycho, and he would have done shit without her, with or without her. But the thing about Myra Hindley was that she seemed, again, perfectly normal. And had she not met him,
that shit wouldn't have happened.
I don't think she would have. She would have just had a normal, unremarkable life.
Myra was just kind of a fucking solid 5 or a 6. I would call her a 6. She was very, very average, but kind of attractive on the average level. And for some reason, that dude really tickled her fancy, and he had a lot of control over her. Had that been another guy who was decent, she wouldn't have gone down that path.
No, not at all. I think she would just had she'd just gotten married and had kids and just been a regular person.
Fucking emotional dependency and her need for love from this
and
dude.
And this ended up in the worst possible way.
Somehow fucking impressed her. He's torturing little girls and she's getting into it.
And she's like watching it.
Ah, man.
I can't imagine.
Yeah. Unless maybe if I'd seen a video of it, maybe when you're there, it doesn't quite seem the way it sounds, but I can't imagine that either.
Like I said, there's something to be said for, and this is kind of how a lot of cults work too, like coming back to the whole cult thing, because we've done a lot of shows about that, and the story goes, most people that research cults Or like pretty much anybody can get sucked into one.
Yeah.
And I believe that. Especially if they come at you from a way that doesn't seem particularly culty. And that's how a lot of them come at you, because they know if they start out with the heavy shit that everybody's going to be like, yeah, no thanks. You know what I mean? They're going to walk off. So they kind of come in at you kind of subtle, you know what I mean? And I get that. So I kind of feel like most people, given the right circumstances and given they were approached in the right way, could absolutely be convinced into a cult. And then by the time you get in there, once you've passed a certain line, it's hard to get out psychologically. Even though it's easy for us on the outside to be like, oh, holy shit, when this horrible thing happened, why didn't you just fucking run? But by that point, they're already kind of brainwashed.
Yeah.
Because they've built up to that. Like, to us, we're just hearing about it from the outside, and we didn't experience this whole build-up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, by the time they got to like, hey, we were like cutting off people's ears, everyone was just kind of like okay with it because they had built up to that. You know what I mean? And they believed, in this case, this is kind of not a traditional cult because they already believed all of this occult stuff. So it wasn't, in a way, it was a little bit of a build-up because they're just kind of like, well, we were doing all these animal sacrifices and robbing graves and shit like that, but hey, wouldn't it be like a lot more powerful if we actually like killed a person? And by that time, everybody had been in it was like, well, hey, that sounds like a good idea. You know what I mean? And they all kind of get it. And he kind of slowly acclimated them to that, right? So and that's kind of the scary thing. This is kind of what fascinates me about cults and about this kind of stuff. And about, again, like the dynamic between serial killer couples, is that given enough of a build-up, you can probably convince most people to do pretty much anything.
I don't know.
Maybe.
Depends on their level of development. I've seen all this shit before. I know how it goes. You know, or I've at least seen it on paper.
I just wonder. I'm fascinated because it's like, I wonder if... Because I always kind of wonder, like nowadays, no. Nobody's going to suck me into anything because I'm just kind of like, nope, no. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do anything. I don't want to do anything that I have to get involved with other people. So just don't talk to me. But I kind of wonder, when I was younger, would I have been sucked into, had they come at me at the right way, or had like some dude come at me in the right way and just like built up into it where it just kind of like got to a point where I was so brainwashed I couldn't get out. And I kind of wonder if that, you know, because I was kind of like a people pleaser, you know, a lot of women are. So I kind of wondered if that would have happened to me had I been approached at the right time. So I think that's what kind of fascinates me about it. And that's what kind of fascinates me about these kind of like couple situations where women get involved in this shit and do horrible. Like I said, I don't think in this case, I don't think none of the cult members that confessed anything, I don't think any of them said that she did anything. Like, she didn't cut anyone's head off or anything like that with a machete, but she was there for some of the stuff and was apparently fine with it. So she watched some of it. I don't think she did any of it. But there have been cases where the women did the shit, and like you said, sometimes the women were worse than the men.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. That's just a dynamic that kind of fascinates me.
Okay, well, I guess we got it finished up. Is there anything we need to talk about there?
I just wanted to mention, again, because I forgot to mention at the beginning of the show, that we have a new patron named Kelly G. So I wanted to say thank you very much, Kelly G, if you're listening. Not sure if you're listening right now. If you're going to be listening later, I'm sure she probably will be. But thank you very much for becoming a patron. Yeah. And all of y'all can become a patron if you want. I mean, most of y'all are probably already. Or, you know, give a super chat.
Half, right.
So that's fine. Like I said, you know, basically you get to vote on whatever the topics are. And you get to find out what the topics are before anybody else and blah, blah, blah. So there's all that. It's kind of like fun perks. So Danny says, as Tom says, shut it the fuck down, Jenny. Yeah, it is getting kind of late. But this was a fun show, even though it was a fucked up topic. So thank you very much for recommending it. Because, yeah, this was pretty messed up, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was pretty messed up.
Yeah.
Tom said it was messed up. What's up? Oh, okay.
Shutting it down.
Okay. So we're going to shut it down for this evening. Thank you very much for dropping by and hanging out with us. Thank you very much for your super chats. Remember, like, share, all of that kind of stuff. And we will be back on Friday night for our sidetrack show, which is always fun. We're going to get drunk and talk about bullshit, which is always enjoyable. So hopefully you can join us for that. And we will see you guys again on Friday night. Good night.